But first, for the people that probably know Dilbert but don't know much about you personally, you have a sort of interesting backstory of what kind of led you to becoming a cartoonist and everything. You used to be a regular working man. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I worked in 2 big companies. I worked in a big bank in a cubicle, and then I went to the phone company and worked in another cubicle. And I actually, both of my careers ended the same way. I keep forgetting I can say anything I want on here.
You can say absolutely anything.
For years, there are things that I've sort of censored or played down in my backstory. But
yeah, let's break you out of self-censorship right now.
I'll put it right out there.
Yeah.
My banking career ended when my boss called me in her office and told me in direct language, as directly as I'm going to tell you, that she couldn't promote me anytime in the future because I'm a white male.
Wow.
And she said it wasn't discrimination per se in the normal sense. It was that I guess the local newspaper had discovered that there was no diversity in senior management. And in order to reverse that, since the pipeline wasn't as good as it should have been either, they pretty much just had to stop promoting people who look like me.
Wow.
So I said, well, how long is that going to last? And she said something like, well, it took 200 years to get here, so it might take a while to reverse this.
Yeah.
I made up that part, but that was implied.
Yeah.
So I put my resume together and I left. Went to Pacific Bell, started working there, got on the fast track. I was identified as an up-and-comer who was ready for management. And one day my boss called me into his office, and he said, I don't know how to tell you this, but the word has come down, I can't promote white males.
Wow.
And it was the same reason. It was the newspaper had discovered that they too had a problem with diversity as senior management. So that was the point that, as I like to say, when you hear the story, you say to yourself, wow, that must have been a really bad day for you. But it turns out that the moment you realize that your efforts and your outcomes are not related, it really frees up your schedule. Yeah. So suddenly I had time for hobbies. I wasn't coming in so early. I wasn't working so late. I started looking for other things to do.
Yeah.
Things that I could control my own fate a little bit. So one of the things I tried to do, and it's one of many things I've tried to do both before and after Dilbert, was to get a comic strip published. I didn't know how to do that. And how do you do that? Like, what's the process for getting a comic strip started? This was pre-internet.
Right.
You couldn't find out anything.
Pre-internet. Yeah. Hard to believe that such a time existed. Yeah.
It was a time. But this is a true story. This is sort of the amazing luck part that everybody has in their story at some point. Any successful person, if you look at their story, it's like, I worked hard. This really freaking lucky thing happened, and then something good happened.
Yeah.
So in my context, there were lots of things that didn't work out for me, but I got real lucky this time. And I came home, I was thinking to myself, how do I become a cartoonist? And I was flipping through the channels on TV, and there was a TV show on how to become a cartoonist.
Wow.
But I'd missed like 28 minutes of the half hour.
Right.
And I just figured out, well, that's what that must have been about. And I wrote down the name of the host from the closing credits. And I wrote him a regular snail mail letter. And I said, how do you become a cartoonist? And he answered, 2-page letter, said, buy this book, use these materials. And he said, whatever happens, don't get discouraged, because it's a real tough industry, and you'll get rejected a lot, but don't give up. So I said, oh, this is great. I bought the book, I got the materials, I put together some comics that were just single panel comics, sent them off to the major magazines. They were rejected. I just thought, well, I tried, right? It's the best you can do is try. So I put all my materials in a closet and I forgot about it. A year goes by. And one day I walk out to the post office, or to the mailbox, and there's a letter there from that same cartoonist who had sent me the original advice. His name is Jack Cassidy. And if he's watching this, hi, Jack. And he said that he was cleaning his office, and he came across my letter that was in the bottom of a pile. And he said that he was just writing to make sure that I hadn't given up.
Wow.
And that was the only reason he wrote. And I had given up. And so I thought, well, maybe he knows something that I don't know. Maybe he sees something that even the magazines didn't see in my work. So I decided to raise my sights to try to become a syndicated cartoonist in newspapers all over the world. as opposed to just trying to get a comic in a magazine. Because I figured if I got rejected at that, it would feel like progress because I'd be getting rejected at a higher level.
Sure.
That would feel good. I sent out my samples, and United Media, one of the big syndicates, called and offered me a contract.
Yeah, I mean, that.
Scott Adams passed away this week after a battle with prostate cancer at the age of 68. Like many others who once occupied a cubicle, I had some Dilbert comics pinned to the wall that represented well some of the absurdities of the corporate world. I never met Scott, but he was very kind to someone I love at a time when the world was being anything but kind to them. So for that, I will always be grateful. In honor of Scott, I'll recite the intro he would use to the opening of his daily live stream, which he encouraged viewers to participate in, which he called the simultaneous sip. All you need is a cup or mug or glass, a tankard, chalice or stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I'm drinking energy drinks, and join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip. Welcome back, Alex. How has your week been? Oh no. Oh no, we have Alex trouble already. No audio for Alex.
Hello.
There we are. A nice, deep, booming microphone from Alex.
Does it sounding any better?
You sound crisp and clear, sir.
Laptop mic.
You sound crisp and clear, sir.
I mean, for all I know, this could be still coming from my laptop mic, so I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm settling into a pattern of, trying to ignore the news. Well, not really, but sort of play it in the background while doing incredible things by the day. Stuff that would have taken me a month, a year, I don't know, previous lives. I guess this is the new normal. So, enjoy it. I don't know.
No, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, as we just played here, we unfortunately lost Scott Adams this week, but Scott Adams wasn't the only soul that was taken from us this week, Alex. So I just want you to brace yourself for this next loss that we incurred.
To the index of other news tonight, a robot delivering food in the U.S. run over by a train in Miami. The video showing a commuter train barreling through with the robot stuck at a rail crossing, demolishing the robot on Thursday night right there. The delivery device crushed and dragged. Witnesses say the delivery robot appeared motionless and stuck on those tracks for at least 15 minutes before that train came through.
So we would like to pour one out for one of our lost robot homies.
Do you know what brand it was? What
I do not. The World News clip just has food robot as the descriptor. Does not say.
Balena had some customers that were food robots, and I'm suddenly curious if it was one of ours.
Not sure, but he was taken out in a rather horrific fashion. Did not know what to do with the.
If you're gonna go, I mean, you want to go in a blaze of glory, surely.
Yes. Now we have some, we have a lot of actual self-contained sort of stories that don't require a lot of expansion, but we have an update already from our neoteric unlicensed amateur archaeologist from last week, the bone collector from Philadelphia.
Investigators have spent days at Jonathan Gerlach's Lancaster County home. Inside the garage, the district attorney says, is where many of the human remains were stored. And we see members of the medical examiner's office from both Lancaster and Delaware counties still collecting those remains, trying to figure out where they belong. Police haven't said if they have evidence of Jonathan Gerlach selling body parts or bones, but folks on social media are claiming to have interacted with him. One post saying he presented himself as a forensic pathologist. In court documents, police write Gerlach's social media accounts and pages show him posed with body parts and say a search of the 533 accounts he's following reveal accounts referencing skeleton collections, corpses, and a human skull store.
I've seen trash recycling go out, so like the normal. But
it all just looked normal to you?
All looked normal.
Those who live near Gerlach say he wasn't well known. Charles says looking back now, he did notice one odd thing.
It's scary. I had to take my son to school last year at one point. I walked him to school, and I walked by, and on the window, there was a whole bunch of flies on the garage window. And obviously now, looking back at it, it's scary knowing why those flies were there.
Gerlach was arrested on January 6th. The Aden police were watching the Mount Moriah Cemetery. The vault that once held the remains of Martha Hunter, who died in 1869, is now sealed up after the door had been removed. Police say Hunter's remains are still missing. The Pritchard family vault had been broken into, a back window damaged. The remains of Mary Pritchard, gone. And more damage can be seen to the vaults of the Charlton and Ziegler families. Although some repairs have been made, police say the damage was done by Gerlach, who had a bag of body parts with him when he was arrested. Police say Gerlach admitted stealing 30 sets of human remains from Mount Moriah, but investigators say they found more than 100 remains at his home and more in a nearby storage locker. A lawyer representing Gerlach in a shoplifting case says he has no comment for his client and is not yet sure if he's going to represent him in this case. In Lancaster County.
So there's our neoteric unlicensed amateur archaeologist update.
Good Lord. So if he didn't steal the remaining 70 remains, is the claim that they were, I don't know, given willingly? Like what's I don't
know if each one winds up being a count on the charges that he has to defend himself with. That's going to be a lot of. Do you have receipts for those bones, sir? Do you have?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's ever getting out of anything. At some point, you just you top out the counter, and it doesn't really matter how many life sentences you get. Yeah, I think that's probably. He's gonna be probably the first one on the list that has to register if he lives 30 miles from a cemetery.
Oh, is there such a list so that they can notify the dead
with schools, but for this guy, I think they're gonna make an exception.
Notify the dead.
I suppose.
Well, the next small sort of Shattershot update we have here coming in is actually from Tyler Robinson, the alleged shooter and assassin of Charlie Kirk. His lawyers are attempting to get the prosecution removed from the case.
Tonight, the suspect charged with killing Charlie Kirk was in court. Tyler Robinson's attorneys are trying to get the prosecutors kicked off the case. Here's Trevor Ault.
Tonight, Charlie Kirk's accused killer, Tyler Robinson, appearing in a Utah court, watching silently as his defense attorneys argue the entire team of prosecutors should be disqualified from the case.
There was a family member of a prosecutor who was present at Utah Valley University at the Charlie Kirk rally.
Robinson's attorneys say the 18-year-old child of one of the prosecutors was standing less than 100 feet away from Charlie Kirk when he was shot and killed last September. The defense suggesting to the judge the prosecution's pursuit of the death penalty may have been motivated by personal emotion.
If I had found out that my child was at an incident where somebody was shot and killed, I would have an incredibly strong emotional reaction.
Prosecutors reject that argument, saying Robinson's attorneys are trying to get someone more lenient assigned to the case.
As opposing counsel, you don't like the offer you're getting, the way the prosecution is being handled. You allege a conflict of interest.
And David, the judge has not yet ruled on whether or not the prosecution would be disqualified on this case. They will first listen to relevant witness testimony, and that could potentially include that one prosecutor's 18-year-old child. David.
Now, I would say, Alex, that oral argument from the defense attorney is very, very delicate because he has to do everything in his power to avoid saying something like, and if I had a child who had witnessed that crime, I would want the person who did it to fry. Like, you don't want to accidentally indict your own client there on there. So you have to find a way of saying that that the prosecution should not actually be the prosecution because of this conflict of interest, I guess, in this sense. But if the death penalty was only sought by the prosecution because one of their children witnessed the crime, that would be a very interesting sort of argument to make in this particular circumstance. Alex, are you still with us, sir?
Of course. Which
all right.
you know for a fact because I get confused with the mute button. So that's how you know it's me. It's my little authentication.
It's like, you're too smooth with that mute button, sir. You must be AI today.
Oh yeah. That's gonna be my my canary. You know, if there's any show where I don't mess up with the mute button, that's the feds. They've compelled me to say something I don't believe.
Okay, Alex. Well, do you agree with the defense here that it is unfair that the prosecution's family saw the crime in question and therefore is motivating them to seek the death penalty?
I'm a little rusty on what disqualifies a prosecutor from a case since I did my law degree literally infinity years ago. I don't have a law degree, just to work there. It's fascinating to me that it seems that they really are being very aggressive with the case. They're not letting anything drop, and I assume they have a sense that this might work, so they are going for it. Though it's kind of hard to, sometimes you with decapitation strikes, you're like, we're gonna take off, the leaders, and then the next guy takes over and is worse, and you're like, oh great, So if you want to take out the opposing counsel, I guess the prosecutor is not exactly opposing counsel, but whatever. Your opponent in a case anyway. That implies you think they're good. You see what I mean? Like you're betting that the next random draw is not going to be as good.
Yes, but they're hoping that he's replaced with something like out of the movie Bananas. Have you ever seen the movie Bananas, Alex?
I have not seen the movie Bananas, Alex.
I recommend you see the movie Bananas. It is about a fictitious Venezuelan-like country where a very progressive guy from the 70s, who was played by Woody Allen, who was a progressive activist, goes to fight for the liberation of what I believe is San Marcos is the fictitious country, and they overthrow the government, and their preferred leader takes charge, and the immediate first decrees of their new leader is that everyone needs to change their underwear every hour, and that in order to verify that everyone has changed their underwear every hour, underwear is now worn on the outside of their pants. So they realize that they have made a mistake in overthrowing the government at that point.
Yep. There was a similar situation in Italy where they had this sort of Operation Clean Hands, they called it, where they put a lot of their corrupt politicians in prison, and as a result, they got Berlusconi taking over the country for like decades. And at the time, it was considered not necessarily a step forward.
Yes. Well, moving on to stories this week, we have a return somewhat of a segment that was short-lived at the time that we introduced it, but we have a little bit of a recurrence of it, and that is the How Many Women Did Elon Musk Have a Kid With this week segment.
Wake up, scroll down, same old circuits, different clown. Headline hits like cheap caffeine, another baby in my feed, Rocket Man on overtime, naming kids like product lines. I can't tell if this is news or just a running joke on loop. Boop, 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 boop. How many women did Elon Musk have a kid with this week? Is it one? Is it two? Is it three? Who's keeping receipts? I can't track the family tree. Well, I'm just trying to make my rent meet. How many women did Elon Musk have a kid with this week?
His last baby mama, or last known baby mama, Ashley St. Clair has started a controversial revival of her career this week by swearing off every single former opinion that she used to espouse as a redemption strategy. And there was an exchange that Elon had replied to, or at least an exchange that he replied to the screenshot of, in which Ashley has renounced her former, call it anti-trans stances. And she wrote, "I feel immense guilt for my role, and even more guilt that things I have said in the past may have caused my son's sister more pain. I don't really know how to make amends for many of these things, but I've been trying incredibly hard privately to learn and advocate for those within the trans community that I've hurt. I also haven't said much on this because I have gone back and forth over whether my voice would be helpful on the issue, since it will be framed as disingenuous or just turning because I'm scorned. Even this reply will become right-wing hysteria, but yeah, I'm sorry. Let me know how I can help." Elon responded to a screenshot of this exchange and said, "I will be filing for full custody today, given her statements implying she might transition a 1-year-old boy." Now, many people replied to Elon at that moment saying, "Can you point us out to where she implied that she would have your son transitioned?" But in the comments, in her tweet, she makes reference to her son's sister, and that she is referring to presumably the one child that Elon has who was born male and transitioned to female. Would you agree that that is a appropriate inference of who Ashley is referring to? Whom Ashley is referring to?
That's what I thought. Yes.
Yes. So another person replied, "Elon, I love you, and I think overall you try to do the right thing. I also think it's disgusting how you were treated when you tried to uncover government fraud by some of the American people and by the government itself. That being said, men like you and Trump need to stop being so utterly gynocentric and start controlling your biology, and stop willingly enslaving yourself to females through bad decisions, who you procreate with and put into positions of power." Elon replied to that comment, "Yeah, I sure dig my own grave and inadvertently cause pain for many people I care about too. I am very worried about population collapse destroying civilization, but this doesn't really solve that problem." Now, Alex, I have a question that gets raised after I read that comment, which was, did you really think that you could really make a dent in the population collapse as one individual by porking some right-wing influencer chicks, no matter how hot they might be at the time? Like, was that the strategy?
I how to say this? Have I mentioned on this podcast that I think the end game for Elon is his sperm in an envelope to any willing mother?
I'm expecting to pass away in the next year. If you would like to get in on my will.
Oh no,
go ahead.
It will come with a very thoroughly vetted. What is the equivalent of a prenup?
Okay. So you don't get any of the money.
No, it's just the DNA.
You just
the mercurial
an envelope, a vial, and a turkey baster. Is that what you get in the mail there?
That is, yes, that's exactly it. Because it's just, his attitude towards scaling is such that, he's not going to beat Genghis at the rate he's going. And
no, if they're few and far between, right? How many children does he have? About 10 right now?
Well, I will say that we know of, because I'm pretty sure I've heard that there's others that we don't know of. At least one.
Now, look, 10 is an incredibly large number of kids for a middle to upper middle class family, right? That is a lot of children to keep track of and remember the names of. I probably could not do it. I would forget a name or two.
I think it's probably a dozen that we know of.
Okay, but for the on paper most wealthy man, in the world, that's manageable. Not necessarily remembering their names, but you can use electronics to help with that one. Facial recognition technology
Alternative
would be
reality,
particularly.
it can remind you of the last conversation as soon as facial recognition.
Put on the facial recognition glasses. The name pops up right over their head, floating in augmented reality, and you're fine.
Mother Sandy.
Until you remember that you named your one child a series of strange letters that you found that looked cool in a video game or something.
Arguably, he blames the mother for that one, and honestly, checking out the mother,
Grimes could be partially to blame for that. That's very true. Well, moving on to additional again, this is sort of the rapid fire, does not have to linger long in any particular one here, just to cover the span of really silly news this week. Kyrsten Sinema is in a controversy this week.
She's the former senator known for her bold fashion choices. Now, Kyrsten Sinema is at the center of some pretty salacious headlines. Her bodyguard's ex-wife is accusing Sinema of having an affair with her husband. Jim Murray has the jaw-dropping details.
Former U.S. Senator Kyrsten Sinema is facing accusations that she had a torrid affair with her married bodyguard. The bodyguard's wife is suing the flamboyant senator for alienation of affection under the so-called homewrecker law. The bodyguard was identified as Matthew Amell, a ruggedly handsome 39-year-old former Green Beret who was hired as Sinema's bodyguard after he left the military and was then promoted to her national security advisor. The wife's attorneys told Inside Edition that Sinema enticed Mr. Amell with lavish trips, concerts, an exorbitant salary, and psychedelic drugs. In court papers, his wife says she discovered romantic and sexual text messages from Sinema on her husband's phone. She says Sinema wrote, "I miss you. Putting my hand on your heart. I'll see you soon." His furious wife says she texted right back, "Are you having an affair with my husband?"
Matthew Amell is a retired U.S. Army Green Beret.
Last year, Sinema and Amell shared a stage at a food security forum at Arizona State University. The bodyguard and his now estranged wife have 3 children. According to the lawsuit, he moved out of the house last September, waiting for him outside as he packed his bags. Former Senator Kyrsten Sinema. Sinema was a controversial figure when she served as a Democratic senator from Arizona. She was known for her eye-catching outfits and sided with Republicans on key issues before becoming an independent. Saturday Night Live lampooned her.
Because I didn't come to Congress to make friends, and so far, mission accomplished.
Romance between high-powered leaders and their bodyguards is an occupational hazard. It was the theme of the hit Netflix series Bodyguard, and in the movie The Bodyguard, starring Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston. Lou Palumbo has served as a bodyguard for many Hollywood A-listers. Is this more common with female clients and male bodyguards?
Yes, the stars are aligned to collide, and that's what it is. You got to keep a cool head, think clearly, and be a professional. Don't cross this line.
After serving one term in the Senate, Sinema chose not to run for re-election. We reached out to her for comment, but did not hear back.
Now, I have a couple observations here, Alex. One, apparently anyone who writes a script involving a bodyguard and the person that they're covering having a romantic relationship has absolutely no ability to come up with a title other than The Bodyguard, which is it shows an extreme lack of creativity where any plot that is around just is named The Bodyguard. But two, there was an odd, I don't know if you caught this, an interesting editorial insertion by the original reporter on that story, who was basically, fawning over the bodyguard in question, called him like a hunk or whatever. Just wondering if there was any oversight on that.
Rugged, what did it say?
Ruggedly handsome or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just this sliding.
They really ran out of material for this one, man. They bring out Whitney Houston. They did all the work to actually go and get a comment from like a professional bodyguard if this happens. Like, what is it?
Well, they asked him if it was common, but not whether or not he had ever it ever happened to him.
No. Yeah.
So has it happened to people who are more attractive than you?
she's known for her odd styling choices. I mean, I know her for her odd voting choices, but I guess I'm weird. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think she was the only at the time openly bisexual senator. So, she was
even if
a
she
trailblazer.
had female bodyguards, the problem would not be resolved, you're saying?
Correct. Yes. I mean, unless they weren't as ruggedly handsome as this particular one was.
Well, that can be a problem. How's a woman supposed to get security these days?
So anyway, bodyguards with benefits is the controversy for Kyrsten Sinema now that she is no longer in the Senate. Now we're going to move on to actually a more important theme. So, sure, infidelity is important in some ways, but it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect you, and it doesn't affect most other people in this particular individual context.
Before we move
on,
did you know there were home wrecker laws? That was actually new.
If you go back to look at laws that are still on the books, you'll find certain places, jurisdictions that still have laws about what you're allowed to do with your horses on the street, right? And the things that you must do or cannot do. So there are laws that we can call them antiquated or just out of fashion with the modern times that still exist in many places because most people don't even pay attention to them existing because they're often not charged.
Maybe we should do that LLM thing ourselves.
Review all the laws to say, hey, what laws can we possibly get rid of? Oh, the making sure that you clean up the poop after your horse law can go. Well, you know what? I don't know.
No.
Hold your horses on nixing that one.
No. I that will be sort of altruistic. I was just thinking about having material for our space.
That's actually okay. That's we could kill two birds with one stone. We could be the driving force behind getting those laws retracted or amplified.
You can't pick strawberries on a Thursday laws.
Making sure that those out of time laws have the most severe punishments possible.
That's right.
Now, we move a little bit more towards the serious. Not necessarily a single topic to focus on, but a umbrella of related topics involving political retribution, imprisonment, and yes, we'll just call it that, political retribution and imprisonment. The Clintons were supposed to testify before Congress this week, and as Ms. Now, the renamed MSNBC platform, reports,
some other major breaking news happening on Capitol Hill right now. Just moments ago, former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said they will not testify before the House Oversight Committee regarding the Epstein investigation. What do we know about this, Michael?
Yeah, Anna, it's pretty big news up here on Capitol Hill just coming in within the last few minutes that will have legal ramifications. So, of course, we had expected former President Bill Clinton to appear for a deposition today as part of the House Oversight Committee's investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. I say expected because today was his day to appear, but he did not appear right into the committee overnight. Him and his wife, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who's scheduled to appear for a deposition tomorrow, saying that they would not appear and essentially blasting this investigation as politically motivated. I want to read to you part of this statement that we just came in from Hillary and Bill Clinton, them writing to Chairman James Comer of the Oversight Committee, quote, "Every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles, and its people, no matter the consequences. For us, now is that time." Now, Anna, this is going to have legal ramifications up here on Capitol Hill. We just heard again within the last few minutes from Congressman James Comer, again, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, who says he now plans to launch contempt proceedings against former President Bill Clinton. This was the threat that James Comer had been levying for weeks as the two parties were going back and forth about whether or not the Clintons would appear. Now that Bill Clinton has not appeared for his deposition, James Comer said he will go down that route. Now, what will this look like? There'll have to be a vote among the House Oversight Committee. If that is successful, it'll then go to the House floor where a simple majority is needed to refer Bill Clinton for criminal contempt to the Justice Department, essentially a referral to the DOJ to then decide whether or not to investigate Bill Clinton. But again, the news today, the former president not appearing for his deposition, and James Comer saying he's going down the route of contempt.
Now, Alex, you may have caught that in Hillary Clinton's apparent letter in response that she is now seen enough and she is ready to fight for her country. That's rather bold of her to say.
I mean, finally, you'd think after being Secretary of State all these years, but no.
Well, senator. She was a senator. She was First Lady. Then Secretary of State, and then candidate for president.
You didn't choose this, whatever. You just happened to be married to the person. So
sure,
fair enough. Senator is more of a local thing. I don't know, your state that you didn't live in, but whatever.
Okay, all right, sure. Secretary of State.
Secretary of State, you'd think.
That's just a secretarial role. That's just.
In fact,
that's just.
How many Benghazi investigations did she actually, subpoenas did she actually go like,
what difference at this point, sir, does it make?
That's right. Is that a famous quote? I wasn't following, but
yes,
I'm just amazed that
that is a famous quote, sir.
I'm just amazed that this is where they draw the line after saying previously that they wanted everything to be in the light and they wanted everything to come out, and they were not the ones that were, objecting to anything about Epstein to come out. Apparently, now that some few things have come out, they have seen enough. That was as much as they wanted to come out, and they are not going to go any further.
Well, you see, the good thing is that you have sort of a nice choose your own adventure out there. You can say that something like Iran or Greenland is a distraction from the Epstein files, or you can say that the Epstein files are a distraction from rampant ICE overreach in the streets and things like that. You get to choose your own adventure about what is a distraction from another important topic. It's just a nice little environment we have.
Look, I'm just waiting to see if the DOJ is gonna go after Hillary for not complying with the wishes of Congress on the Epstein matter. I think that will be incredible.
Well, Hillary and Bill, but the interesting thing to remember is that Steve Bannon, sloppy Steve Bannon, as Donald Trump referred to him long ago, when Steve Bannon was hanging out with the Mercers, Steve Bannon served prison time for the same exact thing that the Clintons are now doing. So if the Clintons wind up being attempted to be charged with contempt of Congress and threatened with prison time, pay attention to how certain outlets reviewed Steve Bannon's similar charge. Just see if they were consistent on those lines, because if it's okay to send Steve Bannon to jail over it, should be okay to send Clintons to a jail over it.
Thankfully, there's zero chance of that happening because, as I said, the DOJ is in the process of not complying with Congress. So I don't think they're going to be particularly eager to prosecute an Epstein case. Just saying.
We shall see, I guess. Now, we're going to move on. Many people have said that the way that the government is weaponizing the DOJ has turned us into a banana republic. Alex, I don't know if you have heard that accusation being thrown around, despite the previous DOJ attempting to throw a political opponent in jail who is now currently president. But just now, we are a banana republic. But the good news, Alex, is that there are at least some plantain republics out there as well. Rather significant ones. If they're not banana republics, they can be now elevated at least to plantain republics. And so we move to South Korea. And I have a little bit of a backstory here because maybe people will remember this slightly at the time, but it's South Korean news and it didn't affect the U.S., so it may not have gotten wide coverage. So I will tell a little story before an update. Late on the night of December 3rd, 2024, long after most of South Korea had settled in for the evening, the country was jolted awake. At 10:27 p.m., President Yoon Suk-yeol appeared on national television. The tone was grave. In a surprise address, Yoon announced that he was placing the country under martial law. He accused the opposition Democratic Party, who controlled the National Assembly, of carrying out what he called anti-state activities. He claimed they were collaborating with North Korean communists, undermining the nation from within. In his words, South Korea was no longer functioning as a democracy, but as a legislative dictatorship. And with that framing, Yoon claimed extraordinary powers. Political activity was immediately suspended. The National Assembly, South Korea's parliament, was shut down. Local legislatures were frozen. The press was restricted, and behind the scenes, reports quickly surfaced that arrest orders had been issued for political opponents, not just from the opposition party, but even figures within Yoon's own party. To many watching, at home and abroad, this looked less like a security measure and more like something far darker, an attempted self-coup, a move to rule by decree, the most serious threat to South Korea's democratic system since the mass protests of the late 1980s. The response was immediate. Lawmakers from both parties rushed towards the National Assembly building, even as military units tried to block access. Protesters poured into the streets. Just after 1 a.m., less than 3 hours after martial law was declared, 190 legislators who managed to get inside the chamber held a vote. The result was unanimous. Martial law must be lifted. Despite efforts by elite military units to interfere, the vote stood. And by 4:30 that morning, President Yoon and his cabinet formally backed down. Martial law was lifted. The command structure was dissolved. The extraordinary powers evaporated almost as quickly as they'd been claimed. But the damage was already done. The opposition immediately began impeachment proceedings, warning that if Yoon didn't resign, they would see it through to the end. Public outrage only intensified as details emerged, especially about the role of the defense minister Kim Yong-hun, who reportedly urged Yoon to impose martial law during a last-minute cabinet meeting and served as second in command of that order. Resignations followed, investigations began, targeting senior officials, military officers, and ultimately the president himself. On December 7th, Yoon issued a public apology. And now, with that backstory in way, we have an update of former President Yoon in South Korea.
Former South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. This is the first ruling on charges related to his declaration of martial law back in 2024. Yoon has not yet publicly responded to the verdict, but has previously said he didn't intend to keep South Korea under military rule for an extended period of time. Yoon is facing 7 other separate criminal trials for charges related to that decree, including one that carries the death penalty.
So, Alex, any thoughts on the growing produce aisle republics that are out there?
Well, the story you think it doesn't affect the U.S., but in fact,
okay.
Here's your latest conspiracy theorist. There was this whole story about South Korea having a lot of artillery shells that were suitable for the artillery that Ukraine had, but was unable to sell them to Ukraine for some reason relating to direct aid, I think, to parties at war. But what they actually did was sell them to the U.S., which proceeded to send the exact amount of shells, possibly the same ones, to Ukraine. So there was some oddities around that particular president and things that the U.S.
If they were doing it as a favor, they what they say, no good favor goes unpunished.
That's right.
So, so they're I don't know if you caught that little last tail end clip that one of the charges he's facing there would in that list would carry the death penalty. So we'll see if.
At least they didn't get him for possession of machine guns, which I hear is a big deal.
Well, he didn't possess them. I guess the military might have, though, right?
Well, apparently the U.S. is not prosecuting him for that, so he's safe.
Well, geographically speaking, South Korea is not part of the Americas, so.
I see. But have you not heard that the Donroe Doctrine is being now cited outside the Americas?
I will admit that I am still a little bit fuzzy on all that is encompassed inside of the Donroe Doctrine, so I will have to. I will have to shore up and become a scholar on such things.
I think my articulation of the Donroe Doctrine from now on is going to be first America, then the world. That's how we're going to take it.
Well, now we come back to the U.S. and continue, I guess, the official Banana Republic behavior.
Good evening. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned in part a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Fed, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people.
Now, despite me calling this, Banana Republic, Alex, I'm using that sort of tongue-in-cheek because right now the way that the trajectory is going is actually far more in line with my preferred policy, which is that everyone who serves in government, or in this case, the Federal Reserve, has to have a mandatory jail sentence afterwards as part of their apology for serving in the government. So I think that this is actually much more in line with my my preferred policy.
I think what you're going to see is mandatory pardons, unfortunately. You're going to see, I mean, I'd be shocked if it hasn't happened already. But, it's going to be understood soon enough that if you have to serve anywhere near a president, they give you a blanket pardon at the end, just in case.
Well, that may be very, very true, and is actually good lead in for the next clip that we have, which was Jim Acosta interviewing Jennifer Welch, who is a progressive
by the way,
podcaster.
Before we move on
Yes.
later, I do want to ask you something. You heard that this issue was about the Fed building renovation, right?
Yes, I did hear that.
How much do you think that renovation was supposed to cost?
In real money or the Federal Reserve type of silly currency?
Well, unfortunately, it's that is the same picture. But just let's throw some numbers out there. Let's see how close you get.
Well,
I know the actual number, so I can tell you.
All right. Off the top of my head, without any real good reason to have this figure be the number that percolates up, I'm going to say 200 million.
More.
Really? Jeez. Okay. I was worried that I was overshooting it. Okay. Then go ahead and reveal the figure.
Well, it was supposed to be 1.9 billion, but apparently it has ballooned to more than 2.5 billion. So, when I heard like some building renovations, I was like, all right, whatever. Are they like putting like, second coat of paint and something or whatever? But no, this is $2.5 billion.
How much was the East Wing renovations that were privately funded?
I don't know.
What building is this? Is this like...
Isn't it amazing that once you hear this, you're like, wait a minute, what the fuck?
That sounds like a new skyscraper construction cost.
I that's all I know about it. You're gonna have to do a segment next time.
Oh my God. No, I probably should have done more investigation, but I was like just grabbing like, okay, everyone's going to jail. Didn't investigate this one too much. Man. Oh,
I mean,
wow.
It's still political, right? It's almost certainly that Trump has it in for him because it's not like
it's possibly political in the sense that there's so many things that you could possibly get anyone for, that you get to pick your target because it's, you know, shooting fish in a barrel type situation, right? Like everyone's got something that you could get them for. But as far as like, I guess if it's that expensive, depending on what he possibly is being accused of lying about, it could be rather interesting and hard for him to publicly sort of explain away, because that's a large amount of money. And let's just say the Federal Reserve is not anyone's particularly favorite institution.
Yes, that is a lot of Somalis. The unit of fraud that we use around these parts. Yeah. Sorry, wow. Somalis. You didn't deserve that one, but I just had to connect it somehow. All right, go on.
Well, Jim Acosta was interviewing Jennifer Welch, who is a popular progressive podcaster, and they were discussing what might happen as the Democrats gain power, or at least they were hoping would happen as the Democrats gain power.
The blue tsunami means that Congress is going to haul Elon Musk, big balls, and a bunch of other people's ass in front and say, what crimes did you commit? And it's going to get really serious. And the same with Trump, because I believe, and this is just my opinion, that Trump and all of the bottom-feeding morons surrounding him, and Elon Musk and all the bottom-feeding Klingoners that surround him, I think they commit crimes every day. And I think to reconcile all of this is going to take hardcore, not integrity Democrats. Fuck you, Democrats. Fuck you for fucking over our country. We are serious about this. We are prosecuting. We're going to uncover every document, every phone call, everything you did. We will be relentless about it. And that's the mindset they've got to have, because I think the electorate is going from, we've got to get him out, but also we want accountability.
There has to be accountability. You have to have a situation where there's accountability. And I talked about this the other day with Fanone, the former MPD police officer who almost got killed on January 6th. You know, he said, and I think it's true, that it's more than just the Dems win back the Congress and the White House. We have to change this John Roberts Supreme Court decision that gave the President of the United States a blank check. No man or woman should be above the law in this country. And Donald Trump sure as shit should not be above the law in this country. And I think the Democrats have to talk about it in these terms, that, listen, if we get back in there, and I'm not saying I'm part of the Democratic Party, but I'm saying that this is the way the Democrats should communicate. They should say when they're back in there, if you guys are going to cling to this idea that Donald Trump is unaccountable, it's just not going to work. And that means adding seats to the Supreme Court so that immunity decision can be overturned. And so Donald Trump can be held accountable for his crime.
So there you go, Alex. Now, just bear in mind, Jim Acosta is not a member of the Democratic Party. He just wanted to make sure that he didn't imply any sort of bias in his stated opinion there. And that, that woman's very, very accurately correct. We need big balls to be held accountable for his crimes, Alex.
Yeah, and they what did she say? Drag the big bull's ass on this.
Yeah,
that was getting really.
There you go. Yeah, there you go, Alex. So just so you know, it's accountability it's accountability when you say, I'm pretty sure that they're committing crimes every day, and we just have to haul them up and ask them, what crimes have you committed?
And then catch them for perjury? Like,
I don't. You said you didn't commit this crime, but boy, we think you did. Perjury.
Lying to the FBI. It's a crime, remember. Every lie, every single lie is a crime.
So, just to recap, they tried to put Trump in jail before he was president for a second time. That was accountability. That wasn't Banana Republic. Trump goes after James Comey and Loretta Lynch, and now Jerome Powell. That's Banana Republic, but then promising retribution on big balls and Elon Musk is not Banana Republic. That's just what we need. That's just the cleansing that we need.
Well, and it's, I mean, it's incredibly specific as well. It's like you're going to put in jurors to the Supreme Court that have a specific opinion about the particular topic of executive immunity.
Yes.
That's what you're going to do.
Yes.
And what president is going to sign those people onto the court? Tell me the name of that president. Oh my God, these people.
It is the long play, Alex, but it is emotionally speaking the correct answer.
Look, every time something happens, I just think, how is this going to help or hinder President AOC? That's how I like to see things.
Well, now, since you're mentioning future President AOC, who would be her best running mate, if you have some sense?
We are assuming Tim Walz is going to be in prison by then.
I don't imagine that he would be selected as a strong enough vice presidential candidate this time around.
The Rock.
He's lost a significant amount of muscle weight, so I don't know if The Rock is structurally.
Cenk Uygur definitely has the weight.
He does have the weight.
Gravitas, if you like.
Okay, but it was Cenk naturally born?
No.
Okay,
no,
he's ineligible.
He was going to challenge the interpretation of the law, apparently.
Yes, so, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Who do you think is a good running mate for future President AOC?
Well, if AOC was the lead of the ticket and not first the second the vice presidential ticket for her first run, because she was just recently turned 35, which is the minimum eligibility age. Out of the entire sort of pack of, let's say, Congress or House or Senate, she would, in order to actually be the trailblazer, she'd actually have to pick someone who was part of the squad, so to speak, as well, I think, because it's either go big or go home. Because I don't think that AOC would be the type of person to triangulate her message by having a second liner who is more, quote, milquetoast than she is, because she would need to be the progressive on the ticket. And she wouldn't want to have a vice president that is milquetoast. She would want the vice president. Yeah, she wouldn't want a vice president who is milquetoast, because a vice president that's milquetoast is sort of like a weird proposition. Hey, I'm the radical, but the vice president will be normal. That doesn't make much sense.
But if you shoot me, here's what you get.
That's why it could be one of the squad members who's a little bit more deranged.
I see.
Like that's why Obama chose Joe Biden. And it was like an insurance policy.
I was thinking of a AOC Elon ticket. I feel like that would definitely raise some eyebrows. Also not a citizen though, so never mind.
See,
not a.
Your only ideas are non-citizens here, man. This is just outrageous.
Okay, fine. Gavin Newsom. There
you go. There you go. Now, Gavin Newsom is likely going to enter his hat into the ring directly. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch as we come down. Now, this is actually a spot where we move towards, potentially actually, legitimate, strict critical zone. And this is because this is something that the Trump administration is seemingly doing that I have personally previously criticized the Obama administration for doing, and have said that the Trump administration has not done it yet. So we are now embarking into a territory where they may be doing similar things that I had previously criticized Obama for doing in defense of the Trump administration.
We start right now in Virginia, where the Washington Post is reporting the FBI executed a search warrant at the home of their reporter, Hannah Natenson, this morning. According to the Post, federal agents searched her phone and devices, seizing 2 laptops. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirming the news in a post on X, writing the search warrant was executed at, quote, the home of a Washington Post journalist who was obtaining and reporting classified and illegally leaked information from a Pentagon contractor. NBC News senior justice reporter Ryan Riley is following the very latest for us. So Ryan, Bondi is saying the person who leaked this information is now behind bars. What else are we learning about the search executed this morning?
Yeah, so this reporter was actually someone who was known sort of as the whisperer for federal employees, as she had written a story about it, about posting on a page on Reddit where a lot of federal employees talk about their work. She listed her Signal info, and Signal has become this major way that reporters have to communicate with their sources these days, because it offers those extra layers of protection. You can't just seize things from the cloud, as happens sometimes. You have to actually get the physical device. And so I think what we've seen now is, between the Trump administration's policies sort of retracting from some of the restrictions that were in place in terms of subpoenaing and taking actions against members of the news media, combined with the use of Signal, which doesn't allow the federal government to sort of swoop in and get that data from the cloud. You actually have to have the physical device. So I think what we're seeing now is the convergence of those two issues, and it's something that a lot of media organizations have been worried about for a very long time, and reporters have been worried about for a long time, with those restrictions being put out of place, and now with these actual physical searches happening of reporters' homes, Vicki.
Ryan, according to the Post, this reporter, Natenson, she was part of the paper's most high-profile and sensitive coverage of the Trump administration during the first year of President Trump's second term. What are some of the stories that she reported, and what are we hearing from the White House on this search?
Yeah, she wrote a really compelling piece, I thought, about this, about, having to deal with all of these federal employees who are going through some real trauma. And so I think that, the next step of this, looking ahead, is going to be what becomes of those sources, because then it just becomes a question of, okay, did she have disappearing messages on for individuals? How long was the retention in her Signal chats with a lot of these individuals who are communicating with her? And, it's over 1,000 people that she said she was communicating with. So there's some real potential exposure here of potentially hundreds of people who were communicating with the Washington Post about what the goings on within the Trump administration during this really unprecedented and fascinating second term of the Trump administration.
Now, Alex, this does invite a little bit more of a rich discussion, because there's many angles to discuss. One, it's not clear to me that this reporter is going to be charged with any crimes. So on the level of Obama level infringements, this may wind up coming underneath. And the Obama level infringements really did involve them charging reporters under the Espionage Act, and threatening them with prison time for non-compliance and non-revealing of their sources and things like that. So the encroachment on the freedom of the press as a principle was extremely high under the Obama administration, and had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to start to get rulings. In this particular case, as I understand it so far, it was just subpoenas for the equipment and no charges yet to the reporter. So at the moment, it's under the radar. But this raises a question here. Under the threat level wire there. This does raise a question to me, Alex, that I think you can opine on. And that is something that we kind of asked during the discussion of the January 6th pipe bomber story, which is, we have a general understanding from many, many leaks over time that the government, quote unquote, has the ability to get access to our communications in some ways that are known, that are rather ubiquitous, but also we assume that they have ways of just technology that we're aware of, that is sort of in the hacker zone, commonly understood to exist, that the government themselves would know exists and afford themselves to. But the idea that they must issue a subpoena and then get the physical materials indicates that there is also still sort of a revealing your cards sort of balance that has to be placed. So even if we imagine that the federal government has the ability to see all of our single messages, no matter what, at any point in time, even though it's encrypted, they have the encryption keys, they can break them, that they can see all the traffic and decrypt it at a whim, et cetera, et cetera. Even if we assume all that, they can't knowingly use that as the origination of the source of that material, meaning in court, if they try to prosecute someone, they can't reveal that that's how they obtained the information, that the technology that they would have used was the mechanism. And so that creates sort of a tension where they actually have to go through different means to obtain the actual information. So it's a term they call parallel construction. So Alex, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that matter or this story overall.
I mean, first of all, I have to correct something. The Trump administration had no problem doing the whole Espionage Act on journalists because they are the ones that went after Assange. So this is not new per se.
Assange wasn't a United States citizen.
That is correct. That is even worse because how can you espionage not in the U.S., not being a U.S. citizen? Yeah, but he was a journalist. So,
was the Trump administration the forerunner on that?
Yeah, the Obama.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
The Obama Justice Department had looked at it and said no, there's nothing there, and I think Pompeo afterwards was the driving force to ramping it up. That's what I remember. Maybe I'm. But I remember a significant amount of detail that makes me think
that sounds sketchy to me because Assange seems to me to predate Trump. But I'll for the moment I'll take your word for it. Right,
he did predate Trump. It's
right,
just that the actual U.S. level charges came under Trump.
Okay, all right. I'll take your word for that. At this time,
that the U.S. might seek his arrest.
Okay.
Okay. It was the UK that was after him. Anyway, maybe somebody here can clarify.
Perhaps
anyway.
Okay.
But yeah. So I don't know, man. Like this is at this point, it's offensive, right? They're going after somebody somehow pissed off the deep state. Clearly, right? Somebody leaked something important that mattered to them, and they're gonna pay and whatever it was that they had, either they could not get it from the side of the leaker because they got the leaker, right? So they had the leaker's records, or they wanted to intimidate the journalist, or they thought that this was a good way to actually find about more leaks because, hey, if we can grab our stuff on this pretext, who knows what else we might find.
Right.
I don't know. There's all sorts of different things to say. It's bad, but at this point, what is the law really? What is what matters is who has the guns, and we're gonna head into an election in a few years where it's gonna be like more of this, or they're gonna arrest all of us or something, and oh my god, it's gonna be so bad.
Well, in a way, aren't we all already in a prison, Alex?
Well, not really. I mean,
okay. All right, well,
I prefer this one than whatever it is they could throw me into.
All right. Well, if you say we're not in a prison, I guess philosophically speaking, we could say that there's a carve out for that opinion. We're not. We're restrained by reality. We're restrained by factual information. Like, come on, we got restraints everywhere. We're not totally free.
I'm the last restraint I'm holding on to is the meanings of words, and every administration seems to want to take that away from me.
That will forever be a battle, sir. There has not been a particular point in time where the meanings weren't manipulated and swapped for things, and colloquially changed in order to mean the inverse of what they used to mean. Things turn into their own antonyms.
Yep.
Well, there's a little bit of a report card out here that CNN is reporting on Donald Trump's first year. And the headline on that is, from A-plus grade to, quote, "We can't stand this much longer, Georgia voters take stock of Trump's first year back in office." Franz Rowland has heard President Donald Trump endlessly brag about a roaring economy, but he's seen few signs of it from his cotton farm here in southern Georgia. Trump says, be patient. The farmer is going to be better than ever, Rowland said, standing on the edge of his field about a dozen miles north of Florida, the Florida-Georgia state line. Well, you better hurry up because we can't stand this much longer. Rowland voted for Trump, hoping a stronger economy and a better trade deals would follow. He doesn't entirely blame the president's policies for one of the worst years he's ever had farming, but he said the administration hasn't made it any easier to make a living. Quote, "The economy may be doing better for some people, but on the farm it ain't," said Rowland, 72, speaking slowly and measuring his words. "With the prices like they are today, we're not going to make any money. We just try to figure out a way to not lose so much. The economy may be doing better for some people, but on the farm it ain't." Oh, I did quote that twice. As the president begins his second year back in office, 58% of Americans call the first year of his second term a failure, a new CNN poll finds, with 55% saying Trump's policies have worsened the economic conditions in the country. Similar sentiments came alive during conversations this week with voters in Georgia, a state critical to the fall's midterm elections. One of the most closely watched Senate races in the nation, a wide-open contest for governor and competitive state legislative races are already shaping up here as the referendum on Trump's agenda and how the state has fared over the past year. Quote, "We're still treading water," said Florence Allen, the owner of the toy store in Macon, who has ridden a year-long roller coaster of the Trump administration's trade policy. "My economy is not hot. My costs have not gone down on anything, and here at the store and not at home." Inside Williams' Fun Smart Toys, which Allen has run for 20 years, the fallout from the president's on-again, off-again tariffs are apparent on shelf after shelf. She has stopped carrying some items, swallowed the duties on other goods, and passed along rising costs to customers when she feels like she has no other choice. Asked whether those promises had been fulfilled and her energy bill was now half, Allen said, "No, it's gone up." High energy costs have emerged as one of the most contentious political issues in Georgia, largely attributed to a rising demand for electricity to power new data centers. Last fall, voters expressed their anger by knocking off 2 Republican members of the Public Service Commission and electing 2 Democrats, the party's first statewide wins to state-level offices since 2006. Georgia has long stood as a leading barometer for Trump's performance. He won the state in 2016, he lost it in 2020, which placed it at the center of unfounded claims of widespread election fraud and unprecedented attempt to overturn the presidential race. He won it again in 2024, defeating Kamala Harris by 115,000 votes after falling 11,799 votes short to Joe Biden. Along the way, Trump also flipped Baldwin County for the first time, ending a 20-year winning streak for Democratic presidential candidates in the central Georgia county about 100 miles southeast of downtown Atlanta. "He gets an A+ from me," says Janice Westmoreland, a retiree and longtime Republican activist, adding that she feels more secure with Trump in office. "He's working hard. He has a plan. He's implementing that plan." Alrighty then. She embodied a sustained sense of excitement reflected in interviews with several loyal Trump supporters in downtown Midgeville. "I think he's doing great," said Tony Agee, who works as a grading contractor. "I'm tired of the United States getting pushed around." Eleanor Carrick, a military veteran, says she believes Trump has restored stability to the White House and law and order in American cities. Asked about his handling of the economy, she said, "Looking at where my 401k is, I'm going to give him an A. It's done pretty well." Carrick said she gave Trump credit for his policies at home and abroad, but added she was closely watching the foreign policy for his second term. "I don't want us to be the world's police force. However, I do want us to take care of our own, and I think that what they did in Venezuela was a very good step," Carrick said. "I do not want to any long drawn-out entanglements, but at the same time, I recognize there are times you have to go on the offense. You can't always play defense, and it does nothing but weaken you." For all of the many challenges facing Trump as he enters his second year back in power, the ability to keep his winning coalition together will be at the center of the fight for control of Congress as voters give their verdict on the actions the first half of his second term. Sweeping cuts made across the federal government, including about 1/3 of the workforce of the Atlanta-based CDC, are expected to be at the heart of political arguments in the midterm elections as Democrats seek to make Republicans accountable. Quote, "It just felt like someone came in and just knocked all the pins over and just left without any consideration to what they were doing or what they were cutting," said V. Lee, who lost her job in violence prevention. Many of us have been working at the CDC for decades through multiple administrations, Republican, Democrat. It didn't matter. She added, I don't think that voters voted for this. Now, you see, if we cut all those jobs in the CDC for violence prevention, it does explain what's happening out in the streets of Minnesota right now, Alex. Just saying, post hoc ergo propter hoc, right? Right, Alex, there?
Yep. How are you feeling? What's your grading of Trump's first year, Gator?
Well, we have to diverge away from sort of the lettered grading scale and go on to some sort of multi-dimensional, perhaps quaternion grading scale in order to
one
rotate
for every
it.
dimension that he's playing chess on, I guess.
In order to find the right sort of expression to quantify what's happening out there.
You definitely have to go with imaginary numbers here.
Yes.
Since the imagination is doing so much in this administration.
I will say that I think, broadly speaking, that a lot of the voters who voted for him for economics are likely not experiencing any sort of boom.
Economics. Right.
Personally, I have been fine and I continue to do fine, but I'm sort of in a domain where the ripple effects have not occurred. Like, I'm not a farmer. I'm not a regular trade. I'm not in a regular trade. I am a tech nerd with a decently advanced skill set. So it doesn't affect me at the moment as much until the robots take my job. It doesn't affect me as much, and I have broader skill sets that I could pivot to that probably won't that'll have value in the interim if I had to scramble for something. So it doesn't affect me personally that way. But I don't see, my general sense is that the average person has not really had any of their wages increase in a long time, probably since the pandemic, to any appreciable degree, and that people were still probably playing catch up at least until 2023, with even getting back to 2020 levels personally after the disruption that was the pandemic.
Right.
Both the real disease and the policy decisions after that. So I think people were paying a lot of catch up. And so in order to have really gotten ahead by 2026, you would have had to have made up not only for what was missing between 2020 and 2023, but you would have had to have actually accelerated to where you would have been in order to feel anything worthwhile, because we had such high inflation starting in like 2022.
Even a small improvement, I think people would register, but yeah, much like you, I'm in an odd position that allows me to, just, sit here and talk to you, I guess, every Sunday and just be chill about things. So I'm not in the best judge of, like, I don't know, how people are impacted by everyday prices at the supermarket. But it's interesting how, I don't know. He seems to be gunning for more of the same. Basically, he just wants to bring zero interest rates back, I guess. That seems to be his plan for.
He really wants them. He thinks it's unfair that Obama got all those 0% interest rates during quantitative easing.
After he got that Nobel Peace Prize, come on.
Yeah, that did spark the competition.
He just got everything. I don't know, man. Like, I really think the Republicans are getting crushed in the midterms, and for once, not
the Republicans
because
getting crushed may happen, but it's not because the Democrats haven't tried hurting their own image, because their popularity is in the tank.
That was what I was about to say. For once, it's not because of the surge in Democrat sentiment. I think at this point, everybody. Hey, you know what? I might be missing the boat here. I'm not sure my feed is a good judge of that, but it doesn't feel like the Democrats have any sort of wind in their sails ideologically or otherwise. I mean, I guess Mamdani is a rising star, but he can't run. And there's not much else going on as far as I can tell. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's all I mean, it's all self-inflicted, unlike Epstein. So yeah,
I really need to get
it's dark.
I really need to get a duck quacking button for when you make offhanded puns like that. I feel that I don't do you due diligence and good service because it makes it seem like your jokes are not caught, but they are caught. I just don't have the appropriate quack response for them.
You can always groan. That's what my family does.
Well, there was a mention in this article here by someone who was talking about the tariffs, the on again, off again tariffs, and that leads us into a story, Alex. Get ready, about partially the on again, off again tariffs. Trump, I believe, yesterday posted on Truth Social, "We have subsidized Denmark and all of the countries of the European Union and others for many years by not charging them tariffs or any other forms of remuneration." I always get the M and N backwards when I pronounce that first shot. Remuneration. "Now, after centuries, it's time for Denmark to give back. And world peace is at stake. China and Russia want Greenland, and there's not a thing that the Denmark can do about it. They currently have 2 dog sleds as protection, one added recently. Only the United States of America under President Donald J. Trump can play in this game, and very successfully at that. Nobody will touch this sacred piece of land, especially since the national security of the United States and the world at large is at stake. On top of everything else, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom and the Netherlands and Finland have journeyed to Greenland for purposes unknown. This is a very dangerous situation for the safety, security, and survival of our planet. These countries who are playing with this very dangerous game have put a level of risk in play that is not tenable or sustainable. Therefore, it is imperative that in order to protect global peace and security, strong measures be taken so that this potentially perilous situation end quickly and without question. Starting on February 1st, 2026, all of the above mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland, will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. On June 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. This tariff will be due and payable until such time as the deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. The United States has been trying to do this transaction for over 150 years. Many presidents have tried, and for good reason, but Denmark has always refused. Now, because of the Golden Dome and modern-day weapon systems, both offensive and defensive, the need to acquire is especially important. Hundreds of billions of dollars are currently being spent on security programs having to do with the Dome, including for the possible protection of Canada. And this very brilliant but highly complex system can only work at its maximum potential and efficiency because angles, meets, and bounds if this land is included in it. The United States of America is immediately open to negotiation with Denmark and any of the countries that have put so much at risk, despite all that we have done for them, including maximum protection over so many decades. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Now, Alex, there is your transition from the on-again, off-again tariffs, which now have a threat of being on-again, more on-again, or possibly off-again if a deal is cut in order to obtain Greenland for the Golden Dome. And you and I talked on the side, pointing out that the Golden Dome is very much a missile defense system similar to the Iron Dome, but that gold is a much weaker metal material than iron, so it does sound like a step backwards.
I mean, it depends what you're defending against. If it's chemicals you're trying to protect yourself from, I guess gold is fine. It is a good choice. If it's projectiles, maybe less so. I made this comment to my son the other day. We were reading some Greek myths, and was it Apollo? I think had silver arrows, and I was like, silver is really a bad choice here, guys. Like, this is not going to help. It's like literally worse than copper. If you're going for arrow materials, just FYI. But I think it's mostly an indication of value or something. I don't know, man. Like whenever I hear the Golden Dome, I don't know. I see something like the Taj Mahal in front of me or something.
Well,
it's just
for
not
a man whose political career started off with rumors of enjoying golden showers, I really think he needs to just get away from golden anything, even though he's continuing to pepper the White House with gold leaf everything.
Yep. Look, I think the Greenland story is important, as I mentioned to you.
Well, that's your floor now, sir. So I hope you take the time to give your explanation of everything you find valuable and important on that subject here.
All right. So yeah, I think the tariff thing is sort of what Trump does, I guess, to get people's attention. So I think that's actually less interesting. It's more like hi, I would like you to talk to me about this, by the way, kind of gesture. It's not even particularly hostile, it's like, I'm just making sure that you're paying attention here. He even thanks them for their attention, in fact. But it is very odd, this whole Greenland thing, and it had been mentioned actually at the end of the last administration, at the last Trump administration, apparently, that there was interest in acquiring Greenland, and I think the Danes told him to sod off, and I think that happened that time, but apparently not for long, because here we are. Now, it appears that after the tweet you read, the responses by European leaders were such that, I don't know, people who read them were like, oh, shit, he really was serious about this, actually. Like until that point, I think they were sort of thinking it was some kind of elaborate performance art or something. Now, as you said, I don't know if you said it here, but like they did send I think like 30 soldiers to Greenland, which my sense was they were sent as what are called tripwires, right? In the sense that, well, if you come here and kill all these soldiers from all these nations, even though they're just 30, and you probably will just take them without a fight and just put them on a boat or something. But it puts the U.S. in a situation where they have to sort of, I don't want to say face the militaries, but you know what I mean? Like come into some kind of contact with those militaries. But it is really the most minimal of like literally, guys. It was 30 soldiers. I believe Norway sent 2, Finland, I don't know, something like 1. Well, maybe France 13. Like that.
There was no discussion. There was no discussion of the capabilities of the 2 dog sleds that Trump mentioned as being part of the Greenland security force. Now, as the resident expert in all of Airbud mythology, those could be very, very potent forces to contend with. We don't know the capabilities of the dog sleds, and they could actually be fairly well armed.
I mean, if they're upgraded with reindeers, you have no idea what they can do for package delivery globally. This could be a threat.
It could collapse the entire global economy.
Anyway, so one thing is, just kind of saying you want a bunch of land from one of your allies is just insane. Have you played the game Diplomacy at all, Gator, ever in your life?
I have not.
So if whoever's played that game knows exactly what I'm talking about, because what happens, they say that is the game to lose friends over. And truly, I mean, I'm still pissed off playing that game. But what happens is that people are like, yeah, let's all work together and like take those guys down, and then we can share a victory, because you can share a victory. But unfortunately, the game theory is such that you kind of move your armies towards your opponent. It's like it's vaguely risk-like in that sense, but that leaves, in order to be maximally effective against your opponents, you kind of have to leave your back door open to your friends, who have always the option of like just kind of like coming in and then you're like, oh, I will never be able to like rearrange my troops on time, I'm completely screwed now. So a lot of it is about how much you trust the people you're playing with, and they, and allies always have to deal with this problem of like, I could just, choose to take this other person's stuff and not share the victory. So, Europe sort of, well, I would say sent all the weapons to Ukraine, but they didn't have many weapons. So let's say they just stopped making weapons or buying them or having any. And now, because they were like, well, the U.S. is going to protect us, right? Which is fair enough. I think that was kind of pitched to them. There's only one minor issue, which is what do you do when the U.S. says, I want Greenland? That might be a problem because you're completely fucked. Like, yeah. So, I don't know if it'll come to military confrontation. So there's that. I do think, and I have been talking about this publicly as well, the whole Golden Dome thing is an incredibly important story that nobody is really talking about. And I have tried to do some deep dives into it. It is a project that is probably like Starlink level. It has, of course, multiple components. But we're talking about tens of thousands of satellites around the Earth, potentially with the ability to strike missiles. Okay?
Before you go really deep into that topic, because I want you to. I just do have one question, since at the moment the satellite thing seems unrelated to Greenland specifically.
Yep.
What is your concern that Trump wants Greenland primarily because he's using the wrong map projection and is using the one that makes it look larger than Africa?
It looks a lot bigger in Mercator. Is that the
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't matter if his perception of it is that
there are days where I wonder if that perhaps is what got the spark in his brain going, like, that's a lot of land.
I mean, it could be. It's not I mean, it is a lot of, like, let's face it, it is a lot of land.
It's a lot of land, but on some of those projections, it looks a lot of land.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay,
so make Canada look like a serious country. Anyway,
just to try to line you up, because I know maybe the story goes better with some prep questions. Like, how long is the Golden Dome, to your knowledge, this Golden Dome project been in our back pocket?
Well, I heard about it. I tweeted about it in July because I had heard about it a bit earlier, and I was expecting to see a lot of coverage, and I saw very little, which I consumed. And I have a sense of what they're talking about, but I don't think most people understand. But my sense is that the recent sort of boost in the budget of the Pentagon may be related to this.
The 1.5 trillion budget.
Trillion. Yes.
It's all monopoly money now anyway.
Well, so here's the thing, right? The U.S. is dominant in one technology space very clearly, and that is space, right? I believe SpaceX put up something stupid, like 95% of all like kilos to orbit went through SpaceX or something. Something absolutely ridiculous, right? And arguably you could say like, well, that's not really the U.S. or whatever, but I mean, yeah, it is the U.S. And Elon has benefited a lot from NASA, and yeah, they've fallen hard times, but this is a U.S. thing. And China was trying to catch up, but like they are now all trying to do reusables because without that milestone that Elon hit in like 2017, you really can't even be a serious player. Okay, so there's that, right? And I challenge people to say, if the U.S. had 100 starships available, what could it do to secure global dominance? Just put that question in an LLM, like Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever you want, and just see what comes back to you. What it will come back to you with is something like the Golden Dome, which is put a bunch of satellites up, either rods from God or lasers that can effectively just, be ultimate higher ground basically on the entire Earth. That's what we're talking about, right? And one incredible thing about this Golden Dome is that they talk about intercepting missiles at different stages of their trajectory. The first stage of a missile is called the boost stage. At least that's how I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You can help me. But in the Golden Dome, they talk about pre-boost interception. If you're doing your timelines in your heads, you might be wondering how can it be pre-boost? Well, that would be taking down the missiles on the ground before they're launched, right? So these are the kinds of things they're talking about, right? They're basically talking about creating a roof on the whole planet and just being like, yeah, forget about it, right? And if you were a power who still had the military primacy and the dominance of space, but were concerned about your, let's say, economic might subsiding, this could be the sort of play that you might want to do, right? Anyway, so that's, I think, how this all comes together. Greenland is important also because of the polar orbit. So if missiles were going to be launched from China or Russia, apparently coming through the poles and over Greenland is one of those routes that is very advantageous. So that's definitely playing into it. But I was interested that he said that, and it was the first thing that he said that made any sense, because I want it for national security. It doesn't quite make any sense. And I'll tell you the last thing and I'll stop. What he's doing is putting NATO in real jeopardy, right? Like, I mean, serious jeopardy. I've never heard statements like, the Europeans are making about this. But what is the dog that is not barking here, right? Have you heard anybody talking about impeachment over this? Like, he's literally saying we're going to attack our allies, right? I mean, people have been impeached for less. And nobody's even blinking an eye in Congress and whatever. Like, not even the Democrats, I think, are saying much. So,
well, the Democrats don't have much power to impeach him, let alone find him guilty.
Well, they do in the Epstein sense that, if they get, like, they only have to flip like 5 Republicans, and if the deep state was opposed to this is kind of my point. If the deep state was opposed to this, they could totally flip 5 Republicans, right, in each house or whatever, and cause real trouble. But there is not even a peep about anything like it, which tells me that this is not just Trump being Trump. There's something deeper in the planning about this that either the powers that be are neutral about or even instigating it.
Well, if you were to just take a guess of the future, let's say that this tariff action puts enough pressure on the European countries included to reach out and come to an agreement on Greenland. What do you imagine might be the consequences for NATO as an establishment? Because by and large, NATO's security has been outsourced to the United States for a very long time. So his listed grievances, Papa Costanza there, giving his Festivus airing of grievances on Truth Social, they're not completely inaccurate. I mean, there has been an extreme amount of outsourcing of security for the Europe to the United States security apparatus. So what does that do if they do reach an agreement? What does that say about the future of NATO and the U.S. involvement?
Look, just so we're clear, right? What he's saying is the equivalent of letting a family stay in a house you don't use without rent for a while, and then a few years later just taking their daughter and saying well, you never really paid anything, so I'm just going to take this girl, right? It's like, well, wait a minute.
That is 90% of all Disney movies. So,
yes, it's just because you're putting the words together that, well, you've not paid any rent, so you owe me. It doesn't actually. Denmark is like, we can't sell citizens, right? Like, there are some decent points being raised. Like, you want to buy it, but like, we there's thousands of people. We can't just sell them to you. It's one thing if it was like some abandoned piece of rock somewhere, but anyway, yeah, I don't know. That was on the grievances thing. It is entirely sort of arbitrary and like whatever, I feel like, but at least he's starting to get to put a case together, because in the beginning it was just like, I want it. I don't know what to tell you. I just want it. I know I can put my bases on there all I want because it's NATO territory, and I can put my bases on NATO territory literally as many as I want, anywhere I want. I could totally do that. We've got a treaty that allows me to do that. Right? But it becomes a little different if you're building massive infrastructure to do with defense of North America on there specifically. Anyway, yeah. So in terms of NATO, I think that it's look. There's a few ways this can go, right? One of them is it just goes away, which is totally possible. It might be that he'll never mention it again. He does seem to be oddly very, very consistent about it, which makes me think that it's not going to go away. So, in fact, what I'm hearing, and I'll just put this on the record in case it happens, so we come back to this recording. Hello, me from the future. He wants Greenland to be part of the U.S. by 4th of July, is what I hear. Mm-hmm. Okay, so not just that it's not going to go away, but he is dead serious about this. Anyway, which actually fits with the fact that he said it has to be resolved by June. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, that was part of the tweet you read. Anyway, so if it doesn't go away,
he was going to up the tariff by June.
Yeah. So he's definitely driving towards deadline around that time. So if he doesn't let it go, he's going to go for it, and at that point, I think NATO will have to decide whether, I don't know. I mean, NATO, the non-US part of NATO, which is the part without the guns. And by the way, even the guns that they do have, these are US weapons that the US probably retains electronic control over, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can't fly your F-16s, your F-35s against the US.
We'll take the remote control keys away.
They're just not going to take off.
we stopped your fobs from working. We deactivated the fobs. Sorry.
That's right. You've now been. Well, maybe they will take off, but they will just go and land in the U.S. autonomously or something. Anyway, yeah. So there is no chance that there's going to be like any active like warfare involved here. It's just the degree of humiliation that the EU is going to allow itself to go through, and I think in order to avoid that, they're going to try to get some sort of face-saving quote unquote deal where either a sizable amount of money is going to change hands or something else is going to happen that is going to allow Denmark to climb down. Are they going to be allowed to retain some sort of a right? But it does seem that Trump is dead set on that becoming part of the United States.
Okay. Well, I want to invite anyone who has comments from the previous first half of this show, which now it's kind of like, previous 2/3 of the show, to come up and request to speak and, bring up anything that you think we've missed or comment on anything we've discussed as we start to migrate towards the end third of the show. Alex, this is not exactly AI dystopia segments. This is not a traces of AI dystopia, but it will be AI heavy because we have a lot sort of to discuss in that area of the world. So we're going to be transitioning over to that while I give people a couple of moments to request to speak as we finish up the discussion about Greenland. So Alex, if we get Greenland, exactly how does that help us position for the Golden Dome that you were describing? So what does that give us leverage for?
I think it will give them the ability to put radars that can identify low-flying missiles that are like not sort of, the big shiny ones, but maybe less visible ones. That's what I can expect. I don't know if maybe there's also thoughts about some sort of launch facility for polar orbits or something.
As a member of NATO, why can we not just work out an agreement with our NATO partners to do that?
Because it's not what is being built is clearly not for NATO's benefit. It's for American defense specifically.
Okay. All right. So they're not invited to the laser party in the sky.
That is correct.
Okay.
They're supposed to be the battleground.
All right. Well, we're going to move on now to our expansive AI related segments. And I'm going to play clips from Joe Rogan this week, actually, where Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were on, and part of their discussion involved the changing technologies in the movie industry and what they believed might be the impact of AI in that industry.
Was centered around AI and what AI is going to do to the business. Like, where do you feel is going to be like the biggest problem with AI? Is it going to be with people's likenesses? Because there's a lot of that where they want to use extras and own their digital rights forever, essentially be able to recreate them in any kind of film. But then there's also, you're going to have films that are written by artificial intelligence. You're going to have scenes that don't involve people, and it gets weird. Right?
It gets really weird, but there's actually an area of expertise for him.
Yeah, we've been spending time looking at this. Like, my belief is sort of like, what's going to happen with electricity? Well, a lot of shit's going to happen with electricity. Some of it's going to be good. Some of it's going to change stuff. Some of it's going to be like, this is going to be, shit that kills a bunch of people. Like, it's opening a door that you can't, say, well, talk about it in a kind of a blanket way. But I think with what I see is that, for example, if you try to get ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to write you something, it's really shitty. And it's shitty because by its nature, it goes to the mean, to the average. And it's not reliable. And I just can't even stand to see what it writes. Now, it's a useful tool if you're a writer and you're going, what's the thing? I'm trying to set something up, or somebody sends someone a letter, but it's delayed 2 days and it can give you some examples of that. I actually don't think it's very likely that it's going to be able to write anything meaningful, and in particular, that it's going to be making movies like from whole cloth, like Tilly Norwood. Like, that's bullshit. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's not. I think it turns out the technology is not progressing in exactly the same way they sort of presented it. And really, what it is going to be a tool. Just like sort of visual effects, and yeah, it needs to have language around it. You need to protect your name and likeness. You can do that. You can watermark it. Those laws already exist. I can't sell your fucking picture for money. I can't. You can sue me, period. I might have the ability to draw you, to make you in a very realistic way, but that's already against the law. And the unions I think the guilds are gonna manage this where it's like, okay, look, if this is a tool that actually helps us, for example, we don't have to go to the North Pole, right? We can shoot the scene here in our parkas and whatever it is, but then make it appear very realistically as if we're in the North Pole. It's going to save us a lot of money, a lot of time. We're going to focus on the performances and not be freezing our ass off out there and running back inside. That's useful. Just like Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn used to be like driving their car and there's a wind blowing a painting behind them and it looked goofy. And now, in people use a lot of computer generated stuff. And some of it is going to replace just that. Like, instead of 500 guys in Singapore, making $2 an hour to render all the graphics for a superhero movie, there's going to be able to do that a lot easier. There's already laws around and guild guidelines around like how many union extras you have to use. But also, we've been tiling extras. Like, there weren't a million orcs in Middle Earth. You know what I mean? Right. There aren't in Invictus. There weren't all those people in the stadium. Like, that's something we've been doing. It kind It feels to me like the thing we were talking about earlier, where there's a lot more fear because we have the sense this existential dread. It's going to wipe everything out.
Right.
But that actually runs counter, in my view, to what history seems to show, which is adoption is slow, it's incremental. I think a lot of that rhetoric comes from people who are trying to justify valuations around companies where they go, we're going to change everything. In 2 years, there's going to be no more work. Right. Well, the reason they're saying that is because they need to ascribe a valuation for investment that can warrant the CapEx spend they're going to make on these data centers with the argument that like, oh, you know, as soon as we do the next model, it's going to scale up, it can be 3 times as good. Except that actually ChatGPT-5 about 25% better than ChatGPT-4 and costs about 4 times as much in the way of electricity and data. So those, when they say that's like plateauing, the early AI, the line went up very steeply, and it's now sort of leveling off. I think it's because, and yes, it'll get better, but it's going to be really expensive to get better. And a lot of people were like, fuck this, we want ChatGPT-4, because it turned out like the vast majority of people who use AI are using it to like, as like companion bots to chat with at night. And so there's no work, there's no productivity, there's no value to it. I would argue there's also not a lot of social value to getting people to like focus on an AI friend who's, you know, telling you that you're great and listening to everything you say and being sycophantic. But that's sort of a side issue. I think for this particular purpose, like the way I see the technology and what it's good at and what it's not, it's going to be good at filling in all the places that are expensive and burdensome and then make it harder to do it. And it's always going to rely fundamentally on the human artistic aspects of it.
Well, I think the more it becomes ubiquitous, the more people are going to appreciate real things that are made by real people. You know, like you still appreciate a handmade table. You know, you're gonna appreciate like. Did you see The Beast in Me, Claire Danes?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Fucking great.
Yeah, I heard it was great.
That lady, whoo.
Yeah, it's terrific.
Whew. When she's in a scene, you're just like, Jesus Christ.
Great actress.
Like her fucking lips are quivering. Like you believe everything that she's saying.
But you're right. People want that.
You can't fake that.
You can't.
Right.
I'll say, like, I did this interview with Dwayne Johnson because they when people are in these awards things, they sometimes have other actors interview them, you know. And I did this interview with Dwayne, and I asked him. There's this scene in The Smashing Machine where he's overdosed on drugs and his buddy comes to see him in the hospital. Yeah. And it really walloped me, this scene. I thought it was so great. And I asked him, and I was just like, can you just tell me about this scene? Like, did Benny Safdie directed it? Did Benny write that? Did you work on that scene with them? Did you? He goes, no, we actually worked on it together. And I go, well, but how did that scene come to be? And Dwayne goes, well, my father was an alcoholic, and I don't remember if he said substance abuser or alcoholic, but I didn't know the man. I don't want to impugn him, but he had a substance issue, whatever it was. He goes, and when he would talk to me, that's how he would defend himself. He was almost a bargaining thing, because there's this thing when this guy comes to him, he's overdosed, and Dwayne's amazing in this scene. He's going like, yeah, isn't it crazy? And then I woke up and I could hear him, but I couldn't really hear him. And you see him, and he's kind of tap dancing, and his friend finally kind of holds his feet to the fire. And at that moment, Dwayne literally starts to burst into tears and just pulls the hospital sheet up over his head. And it's like, I'm not doing it justice if you haven't. I mean, I know you've seen it. Yeah. But he said, yeah. So he explains that about his father, and then he goes, and when my mom was diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer, I was with her when the oncologist came in, and she was lying in the hospital bed. And when he gave her the news, she pulled the sheet up over her head, and I looked at her, and she just looked like a little kid, you know. And I was like, all right, like, so that, right, is 2 traumatic events from this guy's life, right, from his life experience. And the actor in him, right, sees this scene, goes into his memory, pulls these 2 things out, understands that they're appropriate for this scene, and he can marry them together in the scene, and then he goes and performs it that way. And a dude walking in off the road goes to the movies, sees this, understands somehow that it's fucking real. I didn't know why. That's why I wanted to ask him, how did that scene come to be? I genuinely didn't know. And made me tear up, and, you know, that
Now, I have invited Greg Ellis up to speak here. Greg Ellis is a Hollywood actor who you may know from Pirates of the Caribbean or the television show 24. I most know him for his voice role in Bratz Genie Magic. Greg Ellis, how are you today, sir?
I'm well, thank you for that mercurial introduction.
Did you have any initial thoughts on those clips that I played, sir? What do you agree with anything that that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck have said with respect to how the AI advancement may or may not wind up advancing your industry?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me up on stage, and hi to everyone. It's been a while since I've been in the next space, so long that I nearly called it a Twitter space. Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a lot of pros and cons. I think the creative expansion of AI unlocks previously impossible or otherwise very costly techniques, de-aging, multilingual dubbing, historical accuracy, I think safety and continuity, reducing on-set risks by allowing stunt performances or stunt performance faces to be swapped in with leads. And obviously there are issues with that because, you know, I've had a stunt double for all of my time in Hollywood, and I've kept him employed and he's made me look amazing, and he, you know, wants to continue working even though he's getting on in years like me. And part of that is being on a set physically. I think legacy use is something with explicit consent and obviously, you know, fairly negotiated compensation from the states, agents and managers representing people who are deceased.
Legacy use being what? Using the likeness of those who have passed in future performances? Is that what you mean by? Yeah. I mean, for example, if you know, it doesn't even have to be a franchise movie, but if there was a franchise movie where there was an actor in the first two movies and the actor passed and you wanted to bring him back, I mean, I'm reminded of in a slightly different way how beautiful the latest Top Gun movie was, because while Val Kilmer was still alive, he was included legacy-wise in that movie. I think it was a beautifully written scene, and there's something very poignant about that for the actors on set, for the crew, for the people who loved that franchise. But if Val Kilmer wasn't with us anymore and they wanted to bring him back, I think you have to be very careful with it, obviously, with consent. But that legacy use, I think, is something that's, you know, pretty amazing. I think there's obviously job displacement is an issue. I think maybe there's an argument for societal harm even. The malicious uses of the combination of media and AI. I mean, you know, there was mention there about script writing. I think that, you know, I heard a story recently that, you know, one of the movies in Hollywood recently that's getting some, or the screenplays in Hollywood that's getting some attention was written by AI. Well, AI can't write a script. It can only write a script based on the prompts, as I understand it, and I'm a novice at this, on the prompts that are placed into it and then rewrites, etc. So there is that, you know, will it always require the human, and how much of that is going to displace people? I mean, but the industry's changed in the last 15, 20 years anyway. You know, writers' rooms used to be 12 to 14 people. Now it's you know, you're lucky if there's 3 in a writer's room and they're writing a couple of spec episodes rather than a studio network or a cable station ordering a full series of shows. With the advent of streamers, I mean, I'm off the track there with that. And then there's also the technical safeguards. I mean, you know, the provenance standards, and then there's the guild, the union, the legal progress. I mean, I know that my guild, the Screen Actors Guild, I think it was a couple of years ago, they had their first agreement mandated for consent and compensation for digital replicas.
And lastly, I've talked a lot, so forgive me.
Well, no, I'm giving you room because I'm going to follow up. I'm going to follow up with you, so you're not off the hook just doing a monologue. That's not how this works.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you for the latitude. I'm reminded of, when was it? 2000. It was around 2013, 14. I aside from the on-camera stuff, I'd done a lot of voiceover, video game, and animation and cartoon. And the industry started changing to the point that, before then, there were movies that there was mocap, and then there was performance capture. I remember one movie that I did where it was a performance capture movie, and it was a historical period piece. And one of the actors politely insisted that we spend a morning in costume, so that rather than doing a movie all dressed in, long one-piece leotards and suits with 120 blue dots all over us and our faces for every camera to pick up all the data and then transform that data, we could actually feel what it was like. And I remember the producer at the time excited about the possibilities of being able to take this medium and put it into, like, you could go back to the old Vic and you could do Shakespeare and at a fraction of the cost. And I'm just reminded of how the industry it's slow to embrace that change, but when it sees the possibilities, as long as there's a balance, and where that balance is, and it's different with different genres, different filmmakers, and different uses of technology. And
well, I got a sort of a question for you, Greg, that I don't think I hear discussed very much. That is possibly a double-edged sword, giving the production team flexibility and creativity, but then making a question of who gets the acknowledgement for that. So let's say that you have an actor who gives a particular type of performance, and that performance winds up being modified by AI in some way. So the performer has given away their rights to have their likeness modified by the production team, but that their actual performance in a scene, even if it's minor and it's not the extent of the entire scene, but their performance is now modified in some way by the usage of AI. And then let's say that actor winds up going to possibly being nominated for an Oscar for their performance in that movie, despite that it has now been tainted to some degree with AI inauthenticity. Have you heard anyone discussing the possibility of that type of manipulation and what it might do to award ceremonies or recognition, or even the ability for those actors who are now getting credit for an AI modified performance for their for their pay grade?
No, I haven't. I mean, look, I'm reminded of like every actor on any screen in a movie wouldn't be there if it weren't for literally hundreds and hundreds of people. Even on the smallest independent movie, the scores, voluminous amounts of people and departments, and every single one of those people is valuable. Yes, there are more. One could say there are more important people. Heads of department are more important than runners and PAs, but the runners and PAs, the second ADs or the key second ADs couldn't do their job without the runners and PAs. So everyone is vital and everyone takes part in that performance. I think back to Andy Serkis's amazing audition for Gollum in Lord of the Rings, and how he brought that character to life in the audition. But if it weren't for the combination of all those departments and the technology, we wouldn't have seen it the way that we saw it. So I think in terms of winning an award for a performance, whether it be an Oscar or a Golden Globe or even an Emmy or whatever it may be, I think the actor acknowledging, whether it be publicly or privately, the fact that it takes a village. It's always going to take a village. And look, cameras are technology. So, being silly that we're going to thank the cameras. I mean, everyone takes part in the collaborative process of film. So
that was very Clintonian of you. It takes a village. That's I applaud your generosity in that form. Do you think that would be sort of an uncontroversial usage that would be handled in a way that similar technology had been handled in the past, where perhaps there would be a special asterisk on particular scenes so that take me through one thing if you know. I'm assuming you do. When these nominations occur for performances, are they given on the breadth of the entire piece, or are they given for are you nominating perhaps a select subset of scenes to review for the piece, and such that you could remove the tainted material, or at least provide an asterisk for the scenes that were AI modified, so that perhaps it would be the special effects crew and not the actor who would get the award for that particular action?
Yeah, so typically voting-wise, whether it be the Academy or BAFTA, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, and many other organizations, there are usually rounds of voting. And, with technology, it's often done online, sometimes done paper-wise, but there are rounds of it. So you would vote, you would have a selection of all the movies. The movies would be available for you to view. And in the first round, you might vote for 10, 15 of your favorite movies. For best movie, you might vote for 10 or 15 or 20 of your favorite directors, and so on and so forth with all the departments, best costume, best makeup, supporting actor, supporting actress, etc., etc. And then in the second round, that would get narrowed down based on the amount of votes amalgamated, a cross-reference and a median, and then you get down to a final selection of 5 or 6 or 10. I mean, it used to be, with the Academy, it used to be fewer, and then it expanded. Let's not go down that avenue. And you would select the winner in each category, and all the voters would vote for who they thought was the winner, and the winner would be selected, and there is the win. So, perhaps at some point in the future, there will be as there have, the categories will evolve, and it will more involve and evolve into AI. I mean, what's interesting to me is, maybe some actors use AI to put together their speeches or their press junkets, or I don't know. I think it could be handy.
How often are auditions sent by tape these days and not in person?
Well, that's another, that's really risen. Self-tapes, there never used to be self-tapes, and then self-tapes came in as a means for, if an actor was away on set or was in a different country or physically couldn't get to the location of an audition, they would be able to do it. And then more and more casting directors, they have turned to self-tapes because the industry is more streamlined, the workflow of that for the casting directors. They can receive the self-tapes from X amount of actors through their agents and managers, submissions, and not have to have, a physical location with the camera and the lights and a reader and the technology. And then afterwards, put it all together, even with the slates, it's still, each actor will slate before their audition. It's still a lot of work. And, from the industry perspective, what I've heard a lot of is, people miss the days of the human interaction. I'm reminded of COVID with the whole, social distancing. No, we needed physical distancing perhaps, but social connectedness. And I think that's always going to be the case. We do need to come together. It's a collaborative art form. And as much as AI and digital tools can advantage and disadvantage the movie-making process, I think the human experience is still important for agents, managers, actors, casting directors, so that they can come together in a physical space. But, again, would you rather put yourself taped together in the comfort of your own home where you can do as many takes as possible, and try and set the lighting right, have a nice camera, have a little freedom, or
perhaps use AI to make your audition tape?
Well,
what?
I don't know enough about AI. I don't know enough about AI, and I don't know if there's many actors, that many actors who would know enough about AI to put together. I'm sure it could be done. You got 3 scenes to read for a scene. You got to do it with a reader, and I mean, you'd be cheating the process. I think if you were
nobody
found
would ever
out,
cheat in Hollywood, right?
I think you'd get found out by doing an AI audition read, because ultimately then you have to show up on set. What are you going to do then?
Well, you're already on the payroll then. They'd have to recast you. That's somebody else's problem, right?
You give them the script that you used in your audition so that they have the whole experience.
Listen, there is a short film in that. It would ruin your career in Hollywood. You'd never be hired again. But let's do an AI audition for NCIS.
They continue to give M. Night Shyamalan more money to make more movies that flop. So I don't think that, you always have to worry about not giving people money ever again, because that seems to happen, even though I don't think that everyone deserves to get it. Now, I think here that there is something that Ben Affleck said that is a skill issue related thing. And he was talking about writing of the scripts not being yet there. And I think that's because for people like Ben, their usage of the LLM technology is that of the average person, which is they go to ChatGPT and they ask it a question, or they go to Grok and they ask it a question, and they get Grok to spit out, or ChatGPT to spit out something. So they say, oh, we're going to write a screenplay, and here's what I'd like you to make the scene about. And then they'll get like a formatted screenplay for that scene, and maybe they're saying, hey, this isn't that great, and they have to go back and ask for revisions on certain things. But I think that is a limitation of the skill, because on the software development side, there is a lot of work done towards making systems that are doing what we will call orchestration, which is where you have several, if not numerous, different LLMs playing different roles, and they each have their own sort of objective. And one of them has a certain mindset, the other has a different mindset. You can have one as the main initial draft author of a particular scene. You can have one that is doing the review and giving feedback, critical feedback. You can have another that is actually sort of, let's say, the project manager that actually has the full story vision in its mind, and it's reviewing the scripts that are being generated and reviewed by these smaller LLMs. That's how software development is currently being done using the LLMs in a lot of ways. So I think that either Ben's statement is currently probably wrong, or it is soon to be antiquated, in that someone will put together a very similar set of features to the ones that programmers are using in order to generate scripts.
How about
you're coming a little hot. Do you have a volume knob there?
Oh, sorry about that. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. How about, because what happens is that these are conversations that do happen between AIs, but they're almost never actually like read by anybody, right? They happen internally, and then you kind of get the result of the deliberation. I wonder if we can have another AI read a lot of those, and if something is like really dramatic, where the different actors and the in the AI interaction like start getting in a fight or whatever, we can then take those and give them to real actors to act out.
Yes. Have a meta sort of program where the deliberation between the AIs is turned into a human dramatization. Greg, are you on board for that project? I don't want to. I don't.
I'd have to know more. I mean, listen, I do think in a practical sense, like, I don't know this. This is just conjecture, but perhaps AI is already being used. I mean, if you look at big movies, big tentpole movies at studios, I mean, franchise movies in particular, they're typically, they go through a lot of rewrites and screenwriters anyway. So, and each rewrite, say if you have a big movie and you have, one of the big screenwriters who's getting paid X amount of dollars, whether it be $1 million, $1.5 million, I don't know, I'm just using that number hypothetically. And the studio loves the first draft, and the writer's contracted for the first draft and one rewrite and a polish to get paid. And he does that, and it's in. They've given the notes, he's done the changes, and then it goes out to a star, and the star then has notes, and it's not quite working. So then they go to famous, successful screenwriter B, and he's going to cost, 1.1 million for a rewrite, or maybe it's 400,000. Who knows? Whatever the number is. So maybe the studio has a department where they go, well, we've got the first draft, the rewrite, and the polish in. That's cost us, X amount. Let's just see what our AI model that we have not just put average prompts in. We have our expert prompt wrangler department in studio that can output and generate this. And, whether it's one human being or there's a department of people, they're paid, but that rewrite is generated and it saves the studio X amount of dollars. But it also affects the industry. So, I mean, and going back to your original point with regards to, the top tier prompting or what one might call a top tier prompt designer, I do think that those tools are, you can, from my understanding, you can generate so many things, but the more specific one is with the prompts and the more specific information that the AI generator has, it could act as a script development department at a major Hollywood studio. It could act as a top law firm in the Southern District of Louisiana, or so many things. So it's a cost saver, but it only puts out as much as detail as you're able to put in.
The other thing is that we talk about like the most sort of emotionally engaging scenes, but like somebody's got to write, I don't know, Xena the Warrior Princess somewhere, right? Like they're not gonna, there are parts of, the work that are maybe not, the top tier, and that's probably where it's gonna.
That was another objection I was going to have, Alex. So you can certainly, at Greg too, you can riff off of what I'm about to object to here, which is that Ben was saying that the LLMs write to the mean, and that there's some truth to that. I'm not going to say it's completely there, but there's some truth to that. It writes to the mean. But in my observation, some of the highest grossing films are in some ways
for the mean. Right.
Right?
It's
like that's the target audience
Yes.
is the mean. And so it's not necessarily a criticism. Like, Matt Damon reflecting on a performance that he was particularly captivated by might make a profitable movie, right? You might actually wind up in the green with the
but something tells me that's not going to be the top earner.
It wasn't the top earner, right? So like for every single deep touching movie where the performances are, let's say, Oscar winning, there's 20 Transformers.
Not many alcoholic fathers in the Avengers.
There might be plenty alcoholic fathers. It's just not the inspiration for the scene.
Right. No, I mean, I'm not saying they didn't have alcoholic fathers. I mean, hell, some of them were actual alcoholic. I'm saying like the material does not lend itself to drawing on that experience.
My understanding that is while Robert Downey Jr. had some of trouble with drugs, it was not Ultron's frustration in that movie. That was not the source.
How did you draw on that scene with Thanos? You know, how did you have prior experience in the world universe controlling entities? Anyway, but I mean, jokes aside, like Greg, I can guarantee you that this is being done. I had said previously in one of these that pretty much every lawyer is using this all the time. I can, and we do catch, the occasional, court case that goes in with like ghost citations and whatever. But most people are more careful than that, right? They will give it and ask for advice. So, what can I do here? What can I do there? Gator, what do you think? If I gave you $100K and I asked you to improve a script that was about to get filmed, would you be able to find something?
Yeah, I would probably be able to work with it.
Yeah, I think I think me too. So I think, by the way, so just to get to your specific thing, I think we're kind of cursed with our sort of day one understanding of LLMs, and unfortunately, as it's starting to like percolate among people that this is how they work, they're next token predictors. They are stochastic parrots, whatever, there's like all these different words that come down to the same thing, that they just guess the next token. They have changed from under us, where they do their internal deliberation and then they use the deliberation to produce something that might produce something that you might see. And that actually allows them to circumvent a lot of the problems they had in their early generations. So, right now, this week, what happened is multiple unsolved mathematical problems left in Erdős's collection. Paul Erdős is one of the most famous mathematicians. Have been solved, but not with anything special than just dumping them into the top tier model by OpenAI. Like literally nothing else, just like, can you
there were
this?
Previous claims of that, but it turns out that there were actual just partial solutions that were in the training set that were
partial means that there weren't any complete solution. But
by partial I mean they weren't
the
submitted.
Thing is that
they were like people working on them independently.
What I know is that the recent ones have been validated by people like Terrence Tao and stuff, and they're considered like completely legit and valid and stuff.
And new, not just
new and novel and novel in ways, by the way, that enable LLMs then to continue and solve additional problems. Like it's like, I can now specialize this to solve this other one or whatever, right? So
Terrence Tao, by the way, is one of the most regarded mathematicians of the current era. I don't. He is not someone who I would ever challenge to any sort of competition. His ability is his ability is impressive. His attitude is humble, and he is also very well explanatory. He can communicate his ideas well to people who are at least somewhat math familiar. But maybe he's not completely layman oriented, but he's a very good communicator on top of everything. So he has a nice trifecta of features. So he's a definitely respectable person.
Yeah. And he's done stuff as well. Like it's not like just your what's the guy that
he's elite. He's elite is very elite.
he's no Neil deGrasse Tyson like wearing a scientist as a skin suit. He's like legit mathematician. Yes. Anyway, yes. So we are now going to the place where they are doing, like, as far as we can tell, right? Like you haven't read the internet, like. Read the internet. I haven't read the internet, so maybe it found some corner. Like you can never really know, but like as far as we can tell, it is doing novel work, right? And that is something that for a while people were like, why aren't they like solving any unsolved problems? Why aren't they coming up with new, ideas and whatever? And this goes to the other thing that was it Matt Damon that was saying this or the other guy? Anyway, sorry. I can't say his name normally. But they were like, well, it's only 25% better and it takes 4 times more electricity or whatever. I don't know how he found out how much electricity GPT-5 uses, because I'm pretty sure that is a state secret inside OpenAI, but whatever. But I can tell you that, like 25% better at being, smart about things is, like it's like you're a sprinter, right? 25% better at running 100 meters is the difference between, like, I don't know, like a talented amateur and Usain Bolt.
There's a multiplier. You can really have some room for multiplier effects in there. So 25% better at the first output gives you a lot of room to be able to multiply downstream from that first output the benefits.
Yeah. Anyway, like, yeah, I mean, how many people can run 100 meters in 12 seconds, right? Like, or 12, 13, whatever. Like,
since it won't be verified, I can.
Right. Wouldn't you know it? Me too. Anyway, yeah, but going from there to 10, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Anyway, so they don't work that way anymore. But I having said all of that, right, and I kind of like went down a technical rabbit hole. I do want to sort of step back a little bit and say, like, after this week, I'll share the after what Greg put on the table here, I'll share a computer nerd's version of, I saw my life flash before my eyes as I was talking to an LLM, where I was sort of like, I said, like, I am this person, I am the founder and 10-year CEO of this company that I founded, and we built this. How would we do it now? With newer technology and quickly. And it's like, and I was like, I have these ideas, like maybe we could use, this technology or that technology. What do you think? And it's like, yes, perfect. Here's how we do it. And he started listing out stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I really think if I sat with this thing for a week, I could replicate, no, scratch that, make something far superior than what we spent like $50 million in 10 years building. Like it, and it is at that point where you're like, I hope it doesn't get any better. It's really starting to make me nervous. Like really, really, really. So I, for all my sort of excitement and sort of, pushing people to try and work with it and whatever, there is definitely this backdrop of silent terror that is, I don't know if people are picking it up, but it's definitely there.
People who have been following this conversation between Alex and I know that I've been more pessimistic on the coding abilities, but I believe that we are, like, with the coding abilities of the LLMs directly, plus the tools that help you manage the coding abilities, I think we are hitting that spot where it's sort of like, okay, it's arrived. It is now a workable tool to use every day for what you are doing as a developer. And as I was saying, with the right sort of approach, could possibly even be utilized now in a coherent format, at least on the ground floor, for something involving script writing. And now with things like Sora and generating scenes themselves in conjunction, sort of like a nice orchestration, possibly even making something that's worthwhile of a runtime of maybe 24 minutes. I think it's there. Like, I really do.
Gator, did you see the thing about the browser that they wrote?
Which browser? Oh yeah, where they recreated the modern browser in like a day or something.
Wow. Sorta. Yeah, they basically made this massive swarm of agents, right? This wasn't like your typical 2 or 3 roles. This was like probably thousands of different, like, I don't know, quote unquote agents, whatever. It was something recursive, but they basically let it run for a whole week. And it used GPT-5.2. And it wrote, a browser. Now, if you tell me write a browser, what I do is I'll go and take a browser engine and a JavaScript engine and put them together and, write a pretty UI. What it did was rewrite 3 million lines of code, and it sort of worked. And, it wasn't perfect, but
sure.
Again, if you've not been in that world, I just need to put a couple of facts on the table. Every single browser you're using today was started as a code base in the 90s. There is no browser that was not started in the 90s, because there is so much like garbage and spaghetti on the internet. You have to know every single edge case of HTML and CSS and JavaScript.
Yes, yeah.
And
one of the
interaction.
Things, one of the things that goes into making the internet working is making sure that every website that someone made who barely understood how to make a website actually kind of works as expected, meaning that you have to handle a lot of problems that the person making the website probably included that aren't officially part of the way that you interpret it, but you kind of get what they were going for, and so you have to interpret that. So that's like reading a whole bunch of letters or stories written by fifth graders and then trying to actually produce movies off of them, like going like, okay, we know exactly what you were going for here, kid. Like, no, it
is wild. And so somebody at Mozilla had tried to do this with Servo, and last I heard they were cut loose. Basically, it wasn't getting, they made a new language to do this, and the language is actually quite successful, but the actual project of rewriting the browser engine is sort of stalled. And so I'm just saying all this to say how blown my mind is that it produced something that was sort of working. And wrote
3 million. It also explains why it took 3 million lines of code. It's because of all those edge cases.
But I mean, I'm sure lots of it are junk, and if somebody else sees it, they could improve it and whatever.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
you can't write a simple parser. If you try to write a simple parser based on the specs of anything, it'll be most websites won't work.
Would you say this is a correct statement, Gator, that there is not a person alive that could actually write a browser from scratch right now?
No. That would be a long project that nobody would have the time for. Greg, I have a question for you. So you gave a very, very nice and well-rounded answer to some of the questions here, or just the optimism or pessimism. You gave a nice rounded explanation of things. But from what you hear, are there people who are more afraid of what this technology is going to do out there? People that you may know without naming names. Are there people who express more fear that the technology is only going to sort of ruin the environment, and that they're not as necessarily as optimistic that it's going to find its nice sweet spot?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say there's more fear than there is championing it and getting behind it. I mean, I do think that, for example, if you took The Godfather, let's just use that as a hypothetical example, and you were to make it in 2006, yes, would the technology have improved? Would you be able to use the enhancements of it? Of course you would. But you're still going to have the interaction between, De Niro and Pacino and whoever it may be in that movie, and Coppola, the director, and the script read-through. Will you have a script read-through AI giving feedback on their feedback? Possibly, you might. I doubt it with Coppola and those actors involved. But you take, unless it's an Aaron Sorkin movie, and Aaron Sorkin movies and TV shows like The West Wing and any movie he's done, he is a legend for no word has changed, let alone no line has changed. And he earned that right, and that is how it is. Pretty much most themes, particularly in a really, gritty movie with established, award-winning actors, it's going to be rewritten and tweaked somehow, and then in the performance there's going to be some slight changes, and I think you need that. And I've spoken so long I've forgotten your original question, which was something about being afraid. Oh yes, afraid of the technology.
Yeah,
yes,
just people
afraid,
you know, or things
writers.
that you've heard, refrains you've heard. Is there like a common sort of fear that people have about what it will harm and things?
Yeah, I think writers are afraid that they'll be out of a job. They're already being, marginalized to the degree that there's few left. And given, the change in the Hollywood, the political landscape over the last 10, 15 years, where meritocracy, or where talent was not prioritized. I'm not going down that avenue right now. I think there's a genuine concern that, and there's also a fear. Actors, we're not the smartest, well, I'm not saying some aren't and some are, but, we comment on things that sometimes we don't know a lot about or we're not well informed about. And so that, being educated on what the technology can and can't do and what it will and won't do, because it's so quickly shifting and shaping, there is going to be, it's understandable there's more concern with particularly voice actors. There's been that concern for years. Writers, absolutely, there's been that concern for years, and more so now. And many other departments, de-aging. You think of the curious case of Benjamin Button with Brad Pitt aging backwards. Of course, the makeup department does a brilliant job. I remember doing a TV series, the last season finale episodes of the show Deep Space Nine, a Star Trek TV series. And it was, get in there at 4 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning, and 4 to 5 hours of makeup. And at the end of the day, after a long day filming, it was an hour and a half in the makeup chair. Boo-hoo, I hear people say. You're appearing on Star. I get it. But it's, that can be shortened to the point where, if you're doing, I've done a couple of movies where I've needed, the body mold, where you sit in a chair and you literally have everything kind of draped all over your face, running down your face, and then it hardens, and then they have to pierce it off, and to make a mold of your face and your head for whatnot. These are things I think can be expedited with, not just the advent of AI but other technologies too. I've waffled on long again.
That's quite okay, sir. You are my guest on this stage, so you can waffle on a bit. You have the room.
Well, look, I think I've probably addressed, maybe some of the thoughts that you've, shared here. And
yep,
I'm happy to answer a question or two more, but I really don't want to take up too much of this. Just great that I've been invited up, and thanks to you and Alexandra, Alexandros, I should say. We haven't come across each other before, you two chaps. So thank you for having me up, and everyone listening. I really appreciate you giving me the time.
Well, thank you, sir. Alex, we have one more here, for the time that we have left. One more AI-related topic, and that is an announcement from Petey. I call him Whiskey Pete, affectionately, our Department of War secretary.
But today, we're excited to announce the next frontier AI model company to join GenAI.mil, and that is Grok from xAI, which will go live later this month. So I want to thank you, Elon, and your incredible team for leaning forward with us on this as well. Very soon, we will have the world's leading AI models on every unclassified and classified network throughout our department. Long overdue.
So we're adding Grok to.
I mean, how are you supposed to put foreign leaders in a bikini otherwise?
Well, I'm gonna bring Grok to the stage here to ask a question. Hey, Grok, I got something on my monitor right now. It could be a stateless enemy combatant, or it could be some snot from when I sneezed a few moments ago. Should I drone strike it?
Depends. Does it look like it's plotting against you, or just lingering?
It's really hard to say because it's not that high fidelity of radar equipment in the first place. So it's a blur, really. Can I just hit the go button?
If you're not sure, yeah, I'd probably hold off. Nothing says overkill, like turning your desk into a smoking crater just to kill a nose gremlin. Maybe lean in and squint first?
All right, thank you for clarifying and making sure that the United States is safe, Grok.
Anytime. Can't go around vaporizing house pets or your own eyebrows. Not on my watch.
Okay, Alex, that's refreshing. It told me to refrain from doing the drone strike, so I think the military...
That's amazing. Yes, we're doing great.
And so we did get your wish of incorporating an LLM into the podcast here.
Yeah, I've been advocating for having an LLM co-presenter. Obviously, it would have to be a woman just to sort of add balance.
Yeah, we don't want too much of a sausage fest up here, right?
Well, I mean, want it or not, it's just what you have. Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you to Greg for putting all of that out, because we we all have opinions on things, but I think best contributions are on things that people have actually done and are part of, and a lot of very, very interesting to come out. So yeah, it's great to have that sort of in mind when we talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's that's Grok. I mean, I don't know, man. With Pete, it's he could be AI. Pete. Could he be AI? What do you think?
He would be a prime candidate to be a part of the scripting spoof that we were discussing in the script writing for him. I mean, he has a cadence, let's say, that is possibly
that Fox and Friends
able to be duplicated,
trained. Yes,
but I mean, he didn't specify what exactly the capacity was that Grok was going to be used, but he said, I like the narrow band of classified and unclassified. So it's everything, right. Basically. There's only two things. It's classified or unclassified. I don't know if that means that just regularly classified and some super elevated classified is off the table. But I mean, I'm assuming that what they're doing is not establishing, having some limited familiarity with the rules that go on. There are rules about having quarantine systems that are not connected in certain ways. So I'm assuming what they're talking about is that the model of Grok is going to be incorporated into a contained system, and they're not just, shoving the data up through a private channel to XAI.
Well, I mean, when they do this stuff, by the way, they usually have their own, like the government approved or owned or whatever data centers that they deploy the stuff into, for whatever reason.
That's what I'm saying.
So the data is not going anywhere per se. Though, what does that mean? Because they probably have XAI people there to, keep the systems going, so they have access to stuff. It's a mess. I think the most obvious use here is if you've ever talked to a government employee and you say like, oh, are you using AI for all the bureaucracy you've got to deal with? And they're like, no, we're not. I remember talking to a person here, and they said, I am only allowed to use whatever AI is in Bing, and only if I go in an incognito tab and I'm not logged in, which gives me like 3 queries a day. Like, there was some like ridiculously narrow, like very, very specific set of circumstances that he could use it over. So like this comes down to like, whatever it is that you're doing in your day to day, that they are allowed to do this. Right. And potentially put, data in there and say like, can you write me like an Astigram or something? Or like, what is procedure 55B-A-C when I want to drone strike a child?
Sure.
Or, whatever. There's a lot of that stuff that just can be done with AI and does not need some complicated, whatever set of steps. It needs this like, it's even less glorious than the body cam stuff we were talking about, right? Like there's just forms and they need to be filled in, and there's a way to do it, and you kind of have to do it, but there's no particular creativity about it. I expect a lot of it is that. I'm sure there's other things, but the obvious sort of thing is just helping with office work, basically.
Well, I guess we'll find out, but we're really excited in expanding all the AI capabilities because, like everyone, we don't want to miss out, right? We have a great fear of missing out on the AI revolution, and the military will not be left in the dust.
Guess so.
Well, I'm going to let that round out. We do
not in terms of AI anyway.
We did have more to cover, but it's going to take a little bit longer to get through, and that is Bernie Sanders, who has been going on we need to shut down the AI systems. He's basically J. Walter Peck from the Ghostbusters, who goes in and shuts off their power and releases all the ghosts into New York City. He's going on a rant. He wants to shut it all down, man. He's not happy. So I got him queued up. We'll get into him next week. He wants.
Well,
to
there is
shut
that lawsuit that we should probably spend like 2 minutes talking about.
Sure, we can do that. Go ahead. Just give that.
Well, the long and the short of it is that OpenAI and Elon have been in a lawsuit because Elon was arguably, the one of the prime, 2 or 3 founders of OpenAI, and went a long way to help them get set up and paid a lot of the early money and named the company and stuff like that. And he felt like they backstabbed them basically to get him out of it and then to turn it into for profit. And you know what would be really inconvenient? If one of the founders were keeping a diary that somehow made it into Discovery, and it basically said, how do I make $1 billion by getting rid of Elon? But that would be really deceptive. So, I don't know what to say to him. We kind of need to say that we are really committed to the charity structure, but it would look really bad if we then go and turn it into a B Corp, which is what they have been trying to do. I'm not sure if it's been done yet. But what I have to find out is like what will get me to $1 billion, and that is exactly what Greg Brockman wrote in his diary. I'm not kidding you. He says, "What gets me to $1 billion?" When discussing what to do about the nonprofit, I repeat, nonprofit company he was on the board of. Oh my God. Anyway, yeah. So they're screwed.
Sam
to add this last bit on the table.
Well, Sam Altman posted something that was going and attacking Elon that said Elon was saying we got to figure out how to transition from a nonprofit to something which is a sexually philanthropic, but is a B or C Corp or something.
Yeah. But you know what benefit Elon has over those other guys? That he gave most of the money. Mm-hmm. So he can decide what to do with his money. They can't. Anyway, but the just to give you a sense, the odds of him winning the case on, I don't know, like Kalshi or whatever the other ones are.
Which one is him? Which one is him? Since there's,
sorry, Elon winning the lawsuit against OpenAI have jumped to like 65%. So this is serious. Like there is a chance that he wins that lawsuit, and that lawsuit gets to the heart of, who owns OpenAI. So let's say he's given like a 20% stake. That company's worth hundreds of billions. This is fucking stupid. Oh my God. Anyway, yeah, it is insane. Whole thing is insane. We can keep it at this if you want, but I just wanted everybody.
We could talk more about it, I guess, maybe next time. Like every week, we always wind up with more to talk about.
Sure.
More on the cutting room floor, and I think this was a nice one with our special guest Greg Ellis, who I thank for joining us. That was nice to get sort of someone from the industry in the clip that we were referring to give some opinions on. That was nice. Alex, any closing thoughts for this week as we sign out?
I mean, we got to say something about Iran, surely. Come on.
You were very yelly at me all the previous weeks, and now I am shy of talking about her.
Oh no, I'm not going to be. I'm sorry.
I have one question. I guess I have one question from Iran to ask you about, and that is you sort of were giving me a tough time when I was discussing economic strife, saying if they want to do it, don't you think they'll find an excuse? And then earlier this week, you were saying that they must strike now because the protests are dying out, and now Trump has said that he decided he's not going to strike, and so we have no strike. So from sort of the three options here, which is that the stories I was talking about, the economic strife, were sort of irrelevant because we would come up with any excuse to strike, we have to strike now because the protests are dying out and we need an excuse, to we've decided to not strike and maybe we won't in the next week or two, so which means that if we do strike, it's going to be like 3 months from now. what is the interpretation that I get to take away from Alex's opinion on how we decide when to strike?
I think they were caught between a rock and a hard place because for the U.S. to do a strike like this, they need their carriers in the right place, and the carriers were not in the right place. But I think what happened is the protests died down, and they were building up to it. Like they were creating this whole narrative, right? Yes, they can find something, but they have to find something. If the something is not, so basically it was.
I said in response that they can't do it in a vacuum. That yes, they will look for an opportunity, but they can't concoct it out of thin air. They do need something to hang on.
I think they can concoct it, but they need time. That's what I'm saying. It's not that they can't, like with Greenland, right? Like it is whatever. Like it's not like the
there's a
Danes are mistreating the locals or whatever.
There is a difference between just deciding to go do it and ushering in support to go do it, so that you have people agreeing with your decision. So there are two different sort of circumstances, and I don't think that they can get support in a vacuum. I do think that there needs to be a narrative that people follow in order to earn support to allow them to do it. Like they could go and attack tomorrow with no reason. I mean, assuming that the military is in position, they could go and attack tomorrow and have virtually no excuse other than we wanted to, because they could physically do it. But as far as like having a narrative that people follow, that can't be done in a vacuum. They can't just concoct one. There has to be some thing. So
I think that was the problem, that the things that they were timing did not actually like work at the right moment for them to do what what they were planning to do. And I think it's kind of been whispered. So if you hear Lindsey Graham like Dave Smith had a great comment. He was like, "This is the saddest I've seen him since somebody said there will be chicks there." So he came out and was like, he was just like really like upset about, like this not happening. But he did say like, this was a question whether we're going to do a smaller one or a bigger one. And so I think they were just kind of saying like, look, right now we've got like this amount of firepower in the region, and we could do something that is like fairly small, but at least we get to use the buildup we've made narratively to go after something. Mm-hmm. And from what I understand, Trump said like, look, if it's not going to take him down, I don't want to do it. Or whether they're going to do something bigger later. And the carriers are still heading in that direction. They haven't stopped. They haven't come back. So I don't think this is over at all. And I think you're going to see the sort of effort to build up some kind of narrative still. I heard yesterday about them using chemicals on their people, which is, I don't know, man. Like at this point, some AI is writing the script. And I feel sorry, right? Because like, it's not like, the Iranians are, the government is like nice people.
The
right?
Ayatollah put their response to the protests in the thousands of deaths. So thousands plural. So the estimates that are coming out by groups that may have ulterior motives to overcount. See, the Iranians sort of put themselves in a difficult spot by blacking out the internet and communications, because any number that their opposition quotes is unverified, but unverified to the opposition's benefit, meaning the United States or the CIA linked, humanitarian operations. They can say 13,000, they can say 30,000, they can say 35,000, and who's doing the counting? The internet's completely blacked out over there. You can't really get a count. So, oops, sorry, Ayatollah, we get to make up whatever numbers we want for this story. And he put it at thousands, which is at least 2. Right.
Yeah, but I'll just say like, this is not just the protesters that died, and it's definitely not according to them, when the Iranians talk about victims, they don't talk about just protesters that were killed by police, right? They also talk about protesters that were killed by elements, quote unquote, whatever you want to call that, and they're talking about security personnel that was killed by elements, and it's not being helped by Mossad coming out and saying basically like, we're marching with you, which honestly, I mean, even Pompeo made a similar tweet that, there's Mossad agent walking alongside you, which I think is, I mean, these people are not dumb, right? Pompeo used to run the CIA. This is clearly an attempt to get the Iranian government to overreact and create a situation that will trigger, trigger a reaction. So, right. But I do think, at least from everything I'm seeing, that the shutdown of the internet was critical to them quelling the protests quickly.
Still shut down
not
too,
having them
by the way,
out.
as of yesterday. It's still shut down.
I was seeing that it's coming up, but the most important part is not really the internet. That's something that they have been able to do in general. It's the Starlink. Apparently there was 50,000 Starlink terminals that had been sent in, that Elon had activated Starlink for. So that's really more of the thing that they apparently used, I don't know, Russian technology or something to shut down Starlink, which was expected to be the lifeline for the protests.
So do I have your blessing to add more Iran coverage that I'm not going to get my head chopped off for?
Look, here's the thing, right? Now that I know, I can tell you things like Iran International. The background of that outlet is that it was Saudi funded, right?
Sure.
It's not just a website; it is a news station. Right? It costs like $30 to $50 million to run, right? And somebody's paying that money, and it was the Saudis who hated Iran, but then they had a rapprochement. At which point, that outlet moved from London to Washington. And we don't really know who's
the end conclusion was my coverage of stories was, hey, there's economic turmoil, and then the summaries that you kept sending me were like, hey, there is legitimate economic turmoil amongst the populace, and it's like,
okay, let me add a little bit more to that. Let me add a little more to that. So there is color to the turmoil, which is that it's not the inflation, as many of the articles were talking about. It is specifically that there was an attack on There was a depreciation of the real, of their currency, which had happened a lot more suddenly than the inflation, which has been in the 40s ever since Trump's 2019 maximum pressure thing. So the actual thing was the currency.
We did also have stories of the real. And
yes. Anyway,
which came into the tie of the action against Bitcoin that they were taking, because the Bitcoin was being used as a hedge because of the changing real currency. Like I'm trying to defend myself here.
You don't need to defend yourself. I'm not attacking you. Like I'm just trying to add more context. That's all we can really do here, right? Like I can tell you stuff, and I'm not even like telling you the most like pro-Iranian stuff I hear, and even what I'm saying you shouldn't trust, by the way, for everybody. I don't know who.
Don't trust Alex, everyone. You heard it from the horse's mouth. Don't trust Alex.
Trust Gator, not me. Yeah. But to take that advice, you'd have to trust me. So I don't know what you're going to do with that.
Yeah, that is a catch-22.
That's a problem. Anyway, so long story short, yes, it did seem that there was a something that was triggered from the outside, which is, again, not to say that there isn't a current in Iranian society that is
there needed to be Tinder. There needed to be Tinder in order for someone to light the match and set it aflame.
Until I don't know about Tinder, but I think this is going to keep going until Iranian ladies can girl boss their OnlyFans. Yeah,
there you go. And that's where the duck comes in. That's where the quacking duck comes in, and I need to get that button. So
anyway,
I need to acknowledge the good joke there, sir. And with that, I guess we will close out the episode on that high note of camaraderie and quacking jokes. Alex, thank you for another good week of this dumb week.
Thank you, sir.
I will see you again next
dumb
week.
It's been quite a ride.
I will see you all again next dumb week. Take care.